Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragongate is how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragongate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.
Hey everybody, my name is Jesse Collins, and I want to tell you all about my show, the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. On the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, we do a thorough analysis on the biggest issues and trends within the pro wrestling industry. We talk a lot about pro wrestling media, we talk a lot about fan culture and wrestling's place within general pop culture, and we talk about the broader influences that are shaping the way we discuss and analyze the pro wrestling industry. We've had some of the brightest minds in the pro wrestling intelligentsia on the show, including WrestleNomics host Brandon Thurston, both Rich Craich and Joe Lanza from the Flagship Wrestling Podcast, Trevor Dame from the Through the Years podcast, and a whole lot more. This isn't a show for hot takes. It's not a show recapping the latest episode of television. This is a show focusing on the biggest topics in pro wrestling and doing a deep dive on the real stories behind the surface level analysis you might find elsewhere. The Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts, and we'd really appreciate it if you gave us a try. Thanks.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Over the rainbow, gotta let it go. So far. Fast to freedom. Dance tonight together. Here where we want to sing. 你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for April 25th, 2023. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find our podcast on the Voices of Wrestling Network feed or on our own dedicated Open the Voice Gate feed on all podcast platforms and applications. And while you're on those platforms and applications, can you throw us a 5-star rating interview on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts? It's just the best way for people to find the show. You can follow us on Twitter at OpenVoiceGate. And if you'd like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click the red box that says sponsor this podcast, and you can set up a one-time or recurring donation. No obligation whatsoever, but we would like to thank all of our previous donors. I'm one of your hosts. It's your old pal, Mike Spears. Just doing a bit of an intro before we get into the interview we did with Jay. Since this is previously recorded, wanted to just... I don't think there was anything this time that was time sensitive of which we were talking about. We recorded this Saturday the 22nd, just in case there was anything. You know, we've had stuff in the past be that we do a show with someone and we put it in the can for a couple days, and then something big happens that completely changes everything. I don't think that's the case this time. Just a bit of housekeeping. I believe we do talk about this on the show. We are planning on doing a same-day audio on Dead or Alive May 5th. And with the way that Dragongate's schedule is this year, and we get into that with Jay a good bit, it's something that it's just kind of different. And there's only 2 more network shows between now and Dead or Alive, but they're on the 3rd and 4th, and I don't know how or if we're going to really cover those. Jay does talk about what might be going on in Kyoto to kick off May, but I think our plan right now is the we might have a show next week. We haven't really done any talk about it, but expect that next Friday, same day audio. It's going to be basically as soon as Case and I get Dead or Alive watched and get free, we'll get a voice gate out to y'all. But I think that's it from at least here in the new compound. But that's going to do it. Thanks to all of y'all for listening, and special thanks to Jay for doing the show once again. It's always a blast whenever Jay comes on, and I bet when you looked at your podcatcher and you saw that this episode of VoiceGate was getting close to 3 hours, that it was going to be a good one, and it is a good one. So we hope that y'all enjoy. And without any other further ado, here is our talk with the official English voice of Dragongate, Jae Church. Take care, everyone. And at this time, we have our special guest joining us this week on Open the Voice Gate. It is the official English voice of Dragongate and longtime, I guess, godfather of international Dragongate fans. It is Jae Church. Jay, thanks for joining us this week.
Ho-Ho's the godfather. I'm just an assistant. But no, thank you. Thanks for having me. Nice to be back. I haven't talked to you guys in a while, so it's good to be back.
It feels like that when we talked last year, it was in the lead up of Kobe World Weekend, and a lot of it was parsing the Kota Minoura situation. And kind of weirdly, we almost had another Kota Minoura situation as we are on the road to Dead or Alive on May 5th. What's with Minoura and always interjecting himself in the main event right before we're supposed to talk?
I think it's when he doesn't interject himself and he steps up and challenges like a man, that's going to be the time that he finally succeeds, right?
I feel like it's got to. I mean,
it's got to be the story, right?
Last year was turning off the lights. This year, at least, he's just getting into the ring. So we're seeing baby steps, I think.
Sure. And he actually had people behind him this year, and so that that's a good sign. So when the time comes and he doesn't jump in at the last minute or interject himself, and he stands up, wins King of Gate, or does whatever he does and challenges straight up, that'll be the time he wins the title, and people will be into it. Hopefully. I mean, that's the idea, right?
Yeah, very much so. We talked last July, and it was certainly the saddest conversation the three of us have ever had. I think we were all a little down in the dumps from it, but Jay, I'd love to know your temperature check. I mean, going into Dead or Alive, I have expressed numerous times on this podcast how into the Skywalker versus Kakuta rematch that I am. I love all the Brave Gate, Twin Gate, Triangle Gate matches they've set up. I'm excited about the Noah offer match. Where are you at? What do you think Dragongate has done right in changing the direction from where we were at in Kobe World?
Well, I think that was not a fun conversation that we had last year. But I think I said the thing I said that my main takeaway or my main conclusion was that regardless of what happened and how big of a disaster the weekend was going to be, I mean, we all knew kind of going in that it wasn't going to be good, but that as long as Yoshioka was champion on Monday, then it was, it wasn't going to be a home run, but it was getting on base,
Yeah.
right? And that's what ended up happening. Yoshioka winning gave us a solid road towards the end of the year. I'm personally not all that into Skywalker as champion, and so we're kind of in a weird situation with that right now. I think he's kind of doing the Shingo in 2015 thing, where the tone of it's a very different version of what he was like the heel character from last year, where like the delusional psychopath character, and it's kind of moved in now to the only the strong survive, all of my opponents are weak and worthless sort of thing. And it's not, it's kind of killing the vibe a little bit, but it's where it needs to be with Kikuta, right? I mean, there was really no other place to go if Kikuta was going to challenge at this year. This is the place for it to be, right?
Are you at all surprised by the way that the fans have seemingly, at least on our end, taken to him since joining D-Courage? Because he comes back at Dead or Alive last year. He doesn't really make a great impact. King of Gate is sort of a mixed bag. And, last year at World, I mean, he was in nothing multi-man tags. And then all of a sudden that August Corkin, they decided he's going to be the D-Courage assistant. And from there, it's like the rest is history. He took off in such an unexpected way, showed charisma that I was completely unaware that he had. And now when we watch these shows with, luckily vocal fans being back, and we'll talk about that in just a second, he seems like the guy that people are into more than just about anybody.
Yeah, I mean, and he missed a year, so of course it was going to be. And not only that, he missed a year after only being 6-8 months into his career, and being in a bad place mentally, in terms of whether he would actually be able to come back to wrestling or not. The mental impact of getting injured in that sort of situation was, just the fact that he came back at all was amazing in and of itself. But the fact that he stepped up and gotten this good is, the kid's got it. That's really it. I mean, it helps that he's big.
Yeah.
So he's able to, go bone up with guys like Shingo and Masato Tanaka and guys like that and look believable against them. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you thinking a Kikuta win here or what?
I think I'm the one that's I would say closer to your position with the build to this, especially as it pertains to Skywalker. I just look at what Skywalker's doing and I enjoy it. Probably not as much as the Psychopath or the Shun Monte tag team from last year, but there's only so much path ahead for that kind of title run, I guess.
Sure.
Is where I've kind of come to, especially after the Fukuoka shows, that with Kikuta, you have all of this. You basically have just blue skies in front of you, green grass, just what direction you want to go to. There's only so many more kind of times you can do this with Skywalker in this run. And luckily, I mean, we're almost 2 months and a week outside of Kobe World this year. So I don't see this happening much longer. And if you're looking for an exit ramp before Kobe World, Madoka Kikuta is just as good as anyone.
It's interesting though, because I think Skywalker is the one that has more potential matches for World. Like, I don't see. I'm struggling to think of an opponent for Kikuta. Whereas if it's Skywalker, you've got you can do KZ or you can do. There's a couple other options maybe that you can do, but with Kikuta, it's not as obvious, particularly because there's no King of Gate between now and World. So the challenger is going to have to come from somewhere else. I mean, it could be Marufuji, which is not the most exciting thought.
No, that's I like Marufuji, but no, not there. I came on this podcast after the weekend in Kobe 2 weeks ago, and I thought the handicap match between Kikuta and Zebrats came off so well that I questioned here. I was like, well, maybe you do put the belt on Kikuta. He's hotter than anybody. I feel like he could have that short run, and even if I don't like the idea of the Dreamgate bouncing around all that much, I almost like the idea of him winning and then losing very quickly and maybe not even going into World as champion. Fukuoka cooled me down just a little bit. I still thought the SSW Quest stuff was very strong, but it recalibrated me and made me go, all right, let's have Shun win. Let's have him get his big Kobe World match, and we'll go from there. There's no shame. I don't think it's going to hurt Kikuta if he loses, assuming he doesn't get embarrassed, doesn't get injured again.
I don't know, man. I mean, they've been beating this dude up so much that it feels like he has to win. To me,
do you think, if you look at his contemporaries, and I don't want to make you spill any beans that you don't have to, but is something like Kikuta versus SB Kento as somebody living there, hypothetically, let's say you're buying tickets, is that a proper Kobe World Main Event? That seems a little too new. Those guys seem a little too young, but I'm just trying to think of other guys that could be linked at the hip with Kakuta for a match that big.
I mean, you could do SB. I don't think SB will be around for Worlds.
Okay.
I don't know, and honestly, I think they don't know. If
That's the impression I've got as well.
yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know what I don't know what I can say. Honestly, because I don't really know myself that much. I can say like there's paperwork being done, but where they're going after the paperwork is done, I don't know. You know, I don't know if they're going back to Mexico. I don't know if I don't know. I'm assuming that once the paperwork is done, they're going back. They're going back over. So I don't see that as an option for Worlds, but it is. I mean, it's a place you go if Kikuta's champion and SB comes back. I mean, that's an obvious match whatever the next opportunity to do it is. Yes, of course, that's a big match. Whether it can draw for Worlds, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what drawing means anymore. Period.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm the conclusion I'm coming to about World, at least. If you have whomever is without King of Gate, that was an easy, I guess, like setup you could always do. I mean, we look at like the 2010s where it always would be something big in the cage match, and that would pretty much tip the hand of, if not who's going to win, King of Gate, who is going to be likely in that picture. Then you had King of Gate, and then that pretty much onboards you directly to Kobe World. Now,
Sure.
this year that's completely kind of thrown out, and we're left with Marufuji. I don't know if Marufuji would draw in that building for this company at this point.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I could see it being. God, it would be terrible as a world main event. But you could do it in Korakuen in June. There's 2 days. There's 2 days in Korakuen in June, which I asked, so what are we doing? And the answer was, I don't think they know yet. And, that could just be because the person I asked didn't know yet. But I mean, that could be. I know that there's probably going to be. Okay, at least one championship match is going to be on those June Korakuen shows. So I don't know if that's going to end up being like a Champion Gate in Tokyo thing or what. I mean, if you wanted to do Marufuji against Skywalker Kikuta, you could do it in Korakuen and then go to the next person for World. I mean, you could also, if Kikuta wins, you could do Kikuta versus Masato Tanaka in Korakuen. I mean, that's another thing, just to pay that back, you know. But
I think I would be very excited for that, and I think I might be the only one. But
yeah,
I would love the idea of Kakuta versus Tanaka.
Yeah, I mean, no one would give a shit, but it would be. I mean, it would be a defense for him to show off his toughness, in front of the Korakuen fans. If there's anybody that still has any doubts about him as champion, it would be the match that kind of helps improve his medal. But that's a total ass pull there. Like, I don't know if there's any actual direction to go there or what.
You mentioned not knowing what a draw is at this point, and that's something we spent a lot of time talking about last time we're on. Can you talk about life in Japan as you guys are easing out of COVID? And the big theme we hit on last time was just how depleted the industry has become. What are things looking like, 9 months after the last time we talked? What's the state of Japanese wrestling?
It's pretty miserable. I mean, you have to manage expectations, I guess. For us, the ideal situation would be house shows, 400 or 500 people, Kobe, Kyoto, Osaka, 600 people, 800 people, Korakuen, sellout, a sellout, post-COVID sellout is 1,300 people now, apparently. But getting bumping from the 1,100 to 1,300, and then the big shows, getting 4,000, and that's considerably lower than what it was in 2019. And 2019 wasn't exactly like a banner business year. And for other companies, some people are off much worse off than we are. Some people are a little better off than we are, but the standards have decreased so much. I don't know. All right, let me use New Japan as an example, because New Japan sold out Dontaku like 3 weeks ahead of time, right? That shows during Golden Week.
Yep.
And they sold it out, which is incredible, which is awesome, right? I mean, that on paper that's great, but what is that number? Because pre-COVID, a sellout in Kokusai Center was 6,000 people. It's not going to be 6,000 people now. So is it going to be 4,000 people? Is it going to be 5,000 people? Last year they did 8,000 in Fukuoka Dome. So even in an advanced sellout, it's still less than last year, and that's just what we have to deal with. I mean, that's for us, that's for them, it's for everybody. And nobody has any money. Everybody's broke. 3 years of half revenue has been rough on everybody, and there's just no idea or a real indication of whether fans are going to come back to that level or not. I mean, New Japan's going to be fine because they're the industry leader, so that's where people are going to go back to. But the rest of us, I don't know. We ain't got no money. I can tell you that. I mean, we've got young people work cheap, and that's an advantage of having having a roster full of young people. But it also means once people get to a certain level, they want to get paid at a certain level, and then they go freelance, or they they change industries. So we'll see. It's still very much a lot of unknowns. I have a friend who was not like a pro wrestler, not like a pro wrestler staff, but he was involved with pro wrestling as his main job, doing like graphic design, making gear and things like that. And he changed industries this year, and works for a baseball team now. And like, he messaged me, he's like, God, I'm making like 10 times as much money as I did doing the exact same work, but doing it in a different industry. It's like pretty sad.
Wow.
It's something that I wonder, like, in 2019, like even before COVID, it was not like the industry was in great shakes. I mean, even when you look at like the industry leader in New Japan, like they were coming off of that peak at that time. And
Sure.
I guess I wonder, with seeing at least from a distance how the individual side of the industry has changed so much in Japan because of 3 years of half revenue, time having to go on, and different business strategies. I mean, we're still like 2 months after Noah completed their big, let's just see what we can do by bringing in old people phase.
Well, yeah, the one thing that the last 3 years has proven is that the only thing that still draws are retirement shows.
Right. Yeah.
Like our biggest Korakuen Hall attendance of the last 3 years was still the retirement show from last year. And like Noah did the big number for obviously the Tokyo Dome show, but then Harada's retirement was like twice their normal number.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's a given. I mean, so retirement shows are good, but you can only have so many people retire every month before you run out of people to retire every month. And I think it's not a good sign that we're entering like this cross promotional period, because nothing good ever comes of that. I know that there's that Super Smash Brothers fan base aspect that fans have anyway.
Everyone is here.
Yeah, they want everybody on the same roster, and everybody on the same shows and mixing things up. But history says that interpromotional stuff doesn't end well. Whether it be the women's pro wrestling in the early 90s after all those big crossover shows they had, the industry, the women's industry was dead for however 2 decades or whatever, or UWF International after their cross promotional stuff with New Japan. I mean, it's like it's at the end of the day, you still have to go home to your empty house, right? Like, I can go out partying with everybody, but at the end of the day, I've got to come back to my house and keep my own house in order. And I don't know if I can afford to pay my rent coming home to my empty house, right? So,
what's the vibe been like since cheering has started up again? When you walked into Corkin, and I think the first Corkin cheering show was February, what was it like? Everything is right again, or is there still like an awkward trepidation around fans that maybe have not come to buildings to vocally cheer before?
It's awkward. It's still very awkward. We have a lot of new fans. I don't want to say we have a lot of fans, but we have a lot of new fans, in the sense that there's been a pretty big churn over the last 3 years. I mean, Dragongate generally has always had a pretty big churn. You go 3 or 4 years.
Generationally.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years. Particularly, the female fans age out. They get a boyfriend, they get married, they graduate from being fans. But there's usually the churn where they get replaced as they go away, and that hasn't happened over the last 3 years in terms at the scale that it was, in terms of the quick replacement, where for every one fan that left, a new fan came in. So we've kind of had 2 new fans leaving and 1 new fan coming in. Hence 1,000 people instead of 1,800 in Corkin. But most of them are new, and they've only gotten accustomed to pro wrestling during COVID. So that's making the little signboards that they carry, or the Natural Vibes rings, or like like clapping along at this time, and that sort of thing, and not cheering, and the other thing is, over the last 3 years, the rules have said no cheering. So people that cheer, people that have their masks off, all of those things, those were the people that were breaking the rules. Those were the people that were getting kicked out of the venue. So for these new fans, the fans that have come in during the last 3 years, that type of behavior is seen as rule breaking or a breach of etiquette. So kind of easing them in, and breaking that stigma, and the embarrassment of ugly crying and shouting in the middle of a match is, it's kind of like the psychological safety aspect of it. That's why I was very pro idea of keeping the mask mandate through till May, because I think that would help people get used to cheering with the mask on, because it's not as embarrassing.
Yeah.
And then, as we get into summer and it gets hotter and they get used to cheering, I think, naturally it becomes easier for the masks to come off and for that to cheer. It's getting better. One thing that there isn't is kind of like that sustained crowd noise. Like, if you go, if you watch matches from, before the pandemic, the bigger main event matches, there's like that kind of sustained crowd noise throughout a match where individuals are cheering, and there's enough individuals cheering to keep like kind of that sustained noise level. Whereas now, currently, there's periods of noise, but there's a lot of periods of silence in between that, or periods of just clapping where people aren't making any noise because the people are only popping for the bigger spots, so to speak.
The like main event hum is something that I didn't even think about. I guess it's something that at least coming over video and in the feed, the microphones might not pick up it as much. But yeah, now that you've mentioned it, you don't hear like, I don't even know what you can call like the muted roar that
Right.
happens towards that point. Yeah, it's something that I think that like the sustained crowd attention really, like you notice it a lot with the outpost shows like outside of Tokyo, like especially places like Fukuoka, where it's still considered in the scheme of things a newer venue for the company. And you see like, oh, they might be up for a Kakuta match, but then it's gold class and they're back down, and
Sure.
it's not never building upon itself.
Sure. I mean, and look, and I hate to phrase it this way, but I mean it's true in that the guys just aren't that over yet. I mean, there are guys that are popular. You know, everyone is kind of popular individually, but there isn't like that point where everybody in a match is over to the level that there's going to be that sustained noise, where there's going to be somebody cheering for everybody at all time. And it's something that just takes time, you know. But it'll I hate to say it this way, but I mean, this is really the answer to all of these questions. It's either going to get there or it's not, and we just have to wait and see if it does.
I want to go back to industry stuff real quick, because you hit on something a while back. This might have even been 2 years ago when we talked, but the continued prominence of the Lek Corporation being involved in pro wrestling. And it's something that nobody had really discussed until you came on this podcast, and at least in the English speaking world. And I don't know if Mike feels the same way, but I feel like there's been more and more questions about, wait, who is this company? Who is this guy? What is this sponge doing here? Can you talk about their continued impact on the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what would be the word to describe him, but I mean, he's a money mark. That's, I hate to use a derogatory term, but no, Mr. Nagamori, he's a billionaire. Uh, in yen anyway. I mean, like, his family is really rich. His father owns, oh God, what does his father own? A car company. Sorry, I gotta Google this. Nidec. He owns Nidec, which is a car manufacturer here. And like, I mean, they're like a massive company. I guess he's like this horrible tyrant of a boss. But his son is the president of the Lek Corporation. Lek Corporation makes household products, cleaning products, sponges, very good pest control stuff. Like in summer, like the giant cockroaches and the ticks and stuff are horrible in the humid Japanese summer. So Lek products are very good for all of that. My last apartment had this horrible tick problem, and so I went and bought a bunch of Lek stuff, and I didn't have a tick problem anymore.
Huh.
And okay, paid advertisement part of this podcast is over, but
Yeah, well done.
He was a fan from the original Tiger Mask era. That was his childhood. That's what he grew up with, and now he's got money and he wants to help out. He wants to help promotions and help any place where he can advertise while also helping the promotion out. He's happy to do it, and there's always been kind of like the speculation of, he works with us so much that like, is this guy going to buy Dragongate or what? Like, the idea is he doesn't want to buy in to the industry. He just kind of wants to be the friend, the guy who helps people in need. So I mean, he's got his favorites, like Fujinami. So that's why, like, most of the Lek shows, if we've got to deal with Fujinami's son,
who had the performance of his life at that Buyoden show. I couldn't believe. Now, granted, he was in there with 5 of the best wrestlers in the world, but he looked all right.
No, I mean, like, I was distracted by, like, his socks were uneven. So like, he had one sock sticking out of his boot on the one side, and it was just like this like Kmart tube sock. And then here's my Leona story. So when he was in, he did a guest spot in, I think it was Yamanashi years ago. This would have been, it's probably 2000, maybe 2008. Yeah, it was Natural Vibes, so it had to be 2018. And he came out and he danced with Natural Vibes. And my girlfriend, I was watching it. We were watching it on the network. My girlfriend was over at the time, and she's just like, "Who's that old guy dancing with Natural Vibes?" And he was the youngest person in the ring by like 10 years. But anyway, like Strong Machine J, Kai, Ken O, the Nakamura and Chono impersonators. I mean, these are all kind of like the core circle of the Lek shows. He does the thing this year, now that the restrictions and everything are gone, is a big increase in like the parking lot shows. Like you go to the department store, you spend, you spend 2,000 yen, you show your receipt, you can come and watch wrestling. Like that sort of thing. They just did one where Liger was there, did a talk show, and they did a couple of matches. So like that's gonna be the big, like, that plus sponsoring things like there's more Buyuden coming up this year, so he's going to be sponsoring those, and I'm sure sponsoring whatever for these other promotions. But
I'm glad you brought up Kai real quick, Mike. I wanted to hit on this just while I was on topic. Do the fans look at him as still this outsider Kai who's wrestling in Dragongate, or do they look at him as the Dragongate wrestler Kai? Because I've talked a lot lately about how it took a lot of years for me to accept him full time in this promotion, but I'm kind of blown away by how well he fits into the big picture now.
I mean, like I said, they've got so many new fans. I think people, I'm not sure how many people even know. I mean, he's been around for 5 years now, so
yeah.
There's probably a lot of people that don't even know a Dragongate without him.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, he's been heel for a really long time. But no, I mean, Kai, I mean, he's contracted. I mean, he's a Dragongate wrestler. He's not a freelancer. So I mean, he's as much of a Dragongate wrestler as anybody. He's just really, really tall.
That he is.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's the only thing that makes him. I mean, his size is really the only thing that makes him stand out. I mean, he's caught up to the speed and the pace, at least as much as he needs to.
Jay, you brought up these parking lot shows, and it's something that, like, when I saw them more popping up, I instantly went like, all right, this is a Lek thing. They're doing it at home goods stores. That makes sense.
Sure.
And more and more as this happening, we see stuff like the B-League game that Natural Vibes goes and dances in front of it. I know, obviously, like doing stuff with Lek, that there is some sort of compensation that's happening, but do you see this happening, or have you observed that with these parking lot shows that there's like a similarity maybe with like Everyday Pro Wrestling or just other things that they've done in the past, that at least like in 2004 that was getting the new name out? Like, do you see like that this is kind of one aspect of it, or is it just pure like sold show kind of project?
Well, I mean, the money doesn't hurt, but I mean the exposure. I mean, you've got to get the name out, right? And you've got to bring awareness that pro wrestling is a genre, pro wrestling is a hobby that still exists. I think more important than anything. And I think that's what the point a lot of these parking lot shows are. And that's why you have, like, even if they're be real celebrities like the Chono impersonator, the Nakamura impersonator, it's still kind of like, you get them and you get Liger, or you get the real Chono, or you get Tsuji, the ring announcer, kind of like names that people might know as kind of the, oh, wow, he's still doing this. And you have them come and watch the wrestling match. Like, wow, there's wrestling is still a thing that happens. And what's this Dragongate? Sure. But the money doesn't hurt.
Can we talk about Eita for a second and his status with the company? We announced, or you announced rather, the company announced that he was going freelance. This was something we had suspected for a long time. From the best you can tell, is it simply, more financially advantageous for him to be linked up with Cyber Agent? Has he become so Perito-brained that he really just wants to get as close to Nozawa as possible? Can you give us some insight as to what is possibly going on in his brain?
He's got to be in Super Junior, right?
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that because normally New Japan would go for a GLEAT guy.
I mean, he's freelance now, so there's no
Yeah,
politics.
true.
There's no politics. No, I mean Eita. I mean, he's wanted to go for a while. I don't necessarily think if it was purely purely financial, there's not more money in Noah. Straight up. I mean, just he might get a better contract, but they only run, 2 or 3 shows a month, so it's not like there's a big financial advantage to going there. And also, he wouldn't have to leave the company if he wanted to just work in Noah more. I mean, he's not going to go to GLEAT because he doesn't like T-Hawk or Shima, so like that's not going to happen. So it's got to be New Japan. If it's not New Japan, then it's sad.
It's what, like DTU, and I keep on waiting for him to just go, I'm moving to Mexico. I wanted to be here. I'm gonna live my life here, and it hasn't happened yet. But if it's not New Japan, it's nowhere in the United States. That seems like maybe it's his option.
Right, and I don't think moving overseas permanently is an option just because he's an adult with adult responsibilities. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, he could stay in Noah and get out of the junior division, which, I don't know. I don't know whether that's a step up or not. I mean, I honestly don't know.
I think it benefited Kano when it happened, but I do know the people that are more in tune with Noah than I am are very sick of his ongoing will they won't they feud with Ogawa, and I don't think that's helping matters.
Well, aren't they positioning? I mean, they've got a match coming up during Golden Week that's kind of being positioned as the blow off to that.
You would hope, certainly, with the way it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was that was the blow off, and then he shows up in the other place after that. I mean, he's not on Dead or Alive, which I know people were surprised and kind of disappointed about. But I mean, I honestly don't know what his whether he's going to be around here or not much. I mean, it's not the same deal as Doi, as much as it was presented as being a similar situation to Doi. It seems like it's not a similar situation to Doi, and he's full freelance from here. So I don't know if he's going to be back here at all or not, or if he's going to be back for Korakuen shows. So I mean, that would indicate that he's got to be New Japan, right? It's got to be. If it's not, it's disappointing. Is all I'll say.
Mike, what do you think about that Eita New Japan?
It's something that it kind of plays into what Jay, you were saying about the joint shows. It never pays off in the end, other than refilling the bigger the bigger subjects' coffers, like refilling like their cupboard because they don't train people that size or have a productive dojo, I guess. But I guess like the thing with him going to New Japan is, yes, the pay, of course, would be better, and the schedule there is more active than it would be in Noah. I just like it talking about breaking out of the Noah junior division. It takes so much to get out of the New Japan junior division. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, maybe the New Japan junior division is enough in that sense. I mean, the one thing about New Japan is that you only have to be a wrestler if you go to New Japan. Like if you work here, if you work with Dragongate, I mean, you can make a living as a Dragongate employee, but that means you're a wrestler and you're going to your hometown to promote a show, and you're doing these things and you're doing that things. You have you can make a living with your Dragongate money, but you've got 3 jobs, 4 jobs. Everybody has that because it's the family effort. If you go to another place that isn't New Japan, you've got to either work another job, or you've got to take or you've got to work, you've got to take bookings elsewhere. So New Japan has that attractive side of, he's 30, he's 31, he's beat up. He could go there. The style and the pace is slower. He would be one of the best guys in the division. He's got friends. He would be pushed. The only thing that makes it not make sense is I know New Japan doesn't have a lot of money to pay for new people. They pretty much everybody that's re-signed with them this year took a pay cut. So I don't know, maybe they're not hiring new people. But if they are, then it only makes sense for him to go there and be in Desperado's unit.
Yeah, as soon as you mentioned, he has friends there, I was like, oh, of course, he has Despy. That's like a year right there. You can take care of,
and Doki, and him and Doki as well.
Right. Yeah. So
and if he joined that unit, I know Minoru Suzuki is super, super high on Doi, and they could bring Doi in, and they could be in the same unit in New Japan instead of here. And it's just the state of things in 2023.
And one aspect of it being the state of things in 2023 is Dragongate's, I don't know, you would call it a partnership, a deep working relationship with Pro Wrestling Noah, as we have a lot of Pro Wrestling Noah appearances on this Dead or Alive show. I mean, we've talked about Kai in his position here. He's going with Ishin against Shuji Kondo and Kano, and then right before that, Naomichi Marufuji tag teaming here. It seems like I guess that there was a part of me that figured that after everything ran its course, maybe there would be a step back from the Noah relationship, but we're going into one of the big 5 shows, and it's not in the main event, but in featured matches, you have 2 of the larger names of Pro Wrestling Noah. Are you kind of surprised to see how much Dragongate's sticking with Noah after 2022 in this spring?
As long as Noah keeps paying, then we'll work with them. I mean that's really the long and short of it. Noah pays a lot of money for it. The Lek pays for Keno. Marufuji, I'm sure Lek pays for it. And sending guys over to Noah shows, they pay for it. Sending people to the dojo in Mexico, Noah pays for it. So look, we're not going to turn their money down.
What was your impression of the joint Corkin show they did last year? Because Mike and I spent months making fun of it and talking about how they were going to draw 700 fans, and then they turned out to do a decent house, which really surprised the both of us.
I didn't watch it.
You didn't miss much.
No, I didn't watch it. I want to know.
I'm just glad that as we're moving on, we might be avoiding Ninja Mac for the near future.
Yeah, I don't know.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say. The only Ninja Mac match I've seen was the one in Sendai, and that wasn't a good match for reasons beyond whether he was good or not. So, yeah, I don't know. I will say this. Never mind. Move on.
All right. I was hoping you were going to crack again. Let me talk about something that I know, towards the end of last year, I was obviously on the side of, if you're not voting for Takuma Fujiwara as Wrestling Observer Newsletter Rookie of the Year, what are you doing? Jay, you are on commentary, and rightfully so, are very vocal about the year Minorita had. I think with the turn of this calendar year, Mochizuki Jr. has taken a level up that has surprised even me, somebody who has loved him from the jump. Is there something you can point to within the training of these Dragon Gate guys that in the last 4 years, we've got an SB Kento, and we've got a Fujiwara, and we've got a Kamei, and we've got a Minorita, and we've got a Mochizuki Jr., these seemingly natural talents? Is it luck, or is it something that has maybe changed that is helping foster these guys into the company?
Okay. The mindset of what a pro wrestler is and how you should develop a pro wrestler has changed considerably in Dragon Gate over the last 5 years. Period.
That has long been my belief, that there have been fundamental changes from the very bottom of the ground on up.
Yeah, I mean that, and what we've been seeing since 2018, 2019 is you're seeing kind of the delayed payoff of having a peak period, of having that 2013 to 2017 period that was super hot, and you had that was drawing super well, and you were having all these families, all these kids that were coming in, and all the kids wanting to become pro wrestlers out of that, and going through with it and becoming pro wrestlers. So it's, again, I think I've said this before, if you want to become a pro wrestler, if you're tall enough, you go to New Japan. If not, you come here. If you're not good enough, you go somewhere else. I mean, that's the order.
DDT would be more than happy to have you.
Yeah. I mean, they got
Shumi.
Sumi.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened with him. I don't know if he ran out of money.
He's good. I would have liked to have seen what he would look like with. I don't even mean this in a derogatory way, but just I would have liked to have seen what he looked like with Dragongate polish, because he's not going to get that there. But I think he's pretty talented.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen anything, but I mean, sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. You get injured, or you get homesick, or you can't do this, or there's circumstances mean you can't commit and you've got to go somewhere else, and that's cool. I mean, there's people everywhere. I mean, we just had what I think it's 20 kids came in 2 weeks ago, April. So Ho said there were 20. There's probably like only 8 by now. I don't know what the number is, but it's usually down by half after the first week. But like last year, the class that Sumi was in, and that's the class with the Tanaka's the only trainee we have right now, but the Tanaka's class, there were like 25 on day 1, and by world there were still 11, which is like a lot to make it that far. Like I was surprised. Like I went and I was counting, like, Jesus, how many fucking people are there? Like they're all in there wearing their shirts from 2018, because that's the only merchandise we have, only clothes we have to put on these guys. But even though there were 11 in July, by the final test in November there were 4, and only one passed. But just to get to November, you got to be pretty damn good. And if you still want to be a pro wrestler, you can go pretty much. I mean, if you can make it that far in Dragon Gate, you can go pretty much anywhere. So I don't know if anybody is, but
has that number of 20 kids coming in? Am I led to believe that's a far greater number than maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when it was a different regime sort of running things?
Yeah. I mean, there was this is kind of a shocking number, but like, I mean, this is a completely different topic, but kind of the mid card in Dragon Gate right now is, if you look, there's only 4 wrestlers on the roster that debuted between 2007 and 2016, 2016. If you all the next guys, KZ's class that debuted at the end of 2006. So from them up until the 2016 class, there's only like 4 guys on the roster that debuted during that time, and 2 of them are Punch and Yosuke.
What a group of guys.
And I mean, there's UT. UT's fine, is what he is, and the other one is Shimizu. But and there's Jason and Ho-Ho, and Jason's the best one out of the group by far, and I'd put Ho-Ho ahead of Yosuke and Punch on most days. So I mean, there was a seriously fundamental problem with whatever was going on during that period. I know guys did debut. I mean, we had the 2009 guys who were gone. I mean, there was Kotoka, who's like probably the worst guy the company's ever produced. And then there was T-Hawk, is what it is. Lindemann is what it is. There wasn't a lot. I mean, there was a great job of helping foreigners get really good during that period, but none of them are here now. So
Yeah, for sure.
And it's something that, talking about the economic situation, having 25 people at least show up, pay the fee for like at least the entrance exam the first few months, like that is something that I've, at least over the last few months, I've kind of come to, I don't know if I say come to terms, but it just kind of really became apparent to me that with Dragongate, more so than these other promotions with the dojo system, that is a way that the company can make money that you're not necessarily like, you wouldn't see it in New Japan, because the way that they do their dojos and the way that Dragongate does, like that's something that, talking about the family aspect, like I wonder what the position of the company would be at if they weren't having the dojo be this successful at this point in time.
yeah, well, we wouldn't have a dojo, because I mean, most of that money, the entrance fee from those 20 kids is paying for the dojo for the next year, right? So
Is there a young guy that you're particularly impressed with that's already on the roster? I mean, you've spoke incredibly highly of Minarita in the past. What do you think about what Mochizuki Jr. is doing this year?
yeah, I mean, Junior is great. He's I mean, Kato's great. He's injured. Daiki's great. He's injured. I like Fuda. He's injured. um, Nagano's good. He's he's got to overcome the size stuff. The character's helping. People like him. Junior is probably the best of the bunch out of the guys from the last few years. I mean, his stuff with Hayato on Buyuden was really good.
Really good.
Really, really, really good. I mean, they've got to go back to that, and they've got to have them do a singles match, and then he's got to lose, and then he's got to change his name to Mochizuki Junior Ryoto. I mean, that's because Fujita Junior Hayato.
Oh, I like that.
And you have to. If they don't, then we deserve to go out of business.
Have you watched any of Nishikawa's work in Mexico? What do you know about him? Did you have any interactions with him before he left? And have you seen any of what he's doing now?
I think I've said this before. I purposefully don't watch excursion stuff, so I can be surprised when they get back. So no, I haven't watched anything. I mean, his favorite wrestler is Ricochet, so he wants to be a high flyer. He's very tall, so a tall dude that can fly is a lot of buys. So I mean, if he can come back and if he's any good, then he's gonna be a major player. But again, I haven't watched anything. He's also older than everybody, so he's taken a, could I say, much more mature approach to his excursion. A lot of times excursions, you send these kids that are 19 or 20 to Mexico, and everything that all of the how can I say this? All of the delights that come with being a 20-year-old kid in Tijuana. But he's 26. He's 26 now. We have the same birthday, actually. That's last I talked to him on my birthday a couple weeks ago. I was like, hey, we've got the same birthday. He's like, all right, yeah. Next year when I'm back, we're celebrating together. I'm like, all right, cool.
Nice.
But there's like a 20-year difference between in age. I'm like the same age as his father, probably. But I mean, he's 20, so 26. He was college baseball royalty, so I think the traveling the world as an athlete and taking that very professional and very serious approach to your profession or to your to your sport is something that he has already. And maybe that's something that maybe a 19-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid who went from high school, graduated from high school in March and then came to the dojo in April without any life experience, maybe can lead them astray during an excursion. Nishikawa doesn't have that. Like, he's going, like, okay, I'm a professional wrestler. I'm on a trip to improve my skills as a professional wrestler. So that's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm going to do.
He's considered to be very handsome, right?
He's a good-looking guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Who are the heartthrobs on the roster right now?
I mean, really, all you have to do is scroll the hashtag after a show, and it's all going to be like shots of Yoshioka from the chest up,
or shots of Kakuta from the waist down.
Yeah, but those aren't thirst pics. Those are like is that real?
It's like a National Geographic photo.
Right. I mean Yoshioka. I mean, people like Daya because he's cute. People like Jack because he's cute. I mean Minoru obviously because of his physique, and he's also, the Rose thing was very good. It was a great idea because that's something that can get fans easily excited, and they can bring their little Rose to the match, and when it's time for his entrance, that's something that can create that little 30, 60 seconds of excitement. Heart beats fast. Is he going to come over? Is he going to take my, is he going to take my Rose? That sort of thing. And that's what you need. That's what you want. And that's something that's helped him with his popularity.
Yeah, that is something I was going to say with like Minoru, who I feel like, as we've kind of seen, like one of the stories of at least COVID era Dragongate is the ascent of Kota Minoru. There was not a lot to him for crowds, and I knew that like he was like one of the last people up to do like Prime Zone announcing, try to help him get more comfortable with that. And I think like the Rose, when you're in a group like Gold Class, where you already have Benkei, who somehow has figured it out, if it's YouTube videos on the bus or what have you, he now has the crowd connection. Minorita, obvious crowd connection there. You have Hulk, like having that now with Minoru. Now he has his thing. I think is really helped out with them, at least in the short term.
Yeah, I think so. And it helps that the group as a whole is popular. Masquerade wasn't very popular as a group overall. I mean, there are individuals that were popular, but maybe that's unfair because they were a purely COVID period group. So how popular they were, you don't really know. You really don't know because people could just be keeping it, they're quiet. They can't be loud about it. But it felt like Masquerade as a group wasn't super popular. And obviously the first version of Gold Class was a total disaster. But so this is really the first time he's been a part of a unit that is popular as a group. And that brings everybody up. So
it seems like they're in a healthy spot with units right now,
not at all, man. What are you talking about? It's
really
awful. Yeah, there's more people not in a unit than there are in a unit. I mean,
that is fair, but the units that are set up, I guess
they're
maybe
small.
I'm into Vibes, I'm into Z-Brats, I'm into Gold Class, I'm into D-Courage, I'm into M3K. I like what they have on the board. It would be nice if they get one more unit, but I like what they've got. I think with a part of the difference could be I really like M3K and I don't want them to go anywhere, and I sense a growing movement of we've seen what this is and we're ready for something new.
Yeah, I like M3K. With Junior around, I like M3K,
yes.
And the tag league did a lot for Kanda and Susumu. I don't know how much longer M3K is going to be around, but like it's not as dire as it was when they first formed last year. I mean, it also helps that Junior is good now. I mean, that being said, I think Z-Brats is death these days. Vibes is good, but they have too many good people. If that makes sense.
Strong Machine J getting as good as he's gotten, it has gummed up the works in a way that I wasn't anticipating. But we had this conversation last week. I think Natural Vibes is a positive. I think Strong Machine J is a positive. I'm not sure those two things together are creating a positive.
Yeah, I think that's that, and I could say that also about. You could say that individually about Jason and Kame as well, in the sense that if I'm thinking, okay, I need a new member for D Courage, who am I going to pick?
Yeah, probably Jason.
I would pick, my first thought would be, Kame would be great with them, or Jason would be great with them, or Machine J would be great with them. And I think kind of the idea that Vibes was the unit where they put, Vibes is exciting because they've got all these great young guys that are super exciting to watch, but they've got all of the young guys that are super exciting to watch. So it makes it difficult to make it's hard on the other groups. D Courage is the big, the most popular act on the show, but there's only 3 people there. So it's not really a unit. It's a team. It's a team, not a unit. So, and from a pure kayfabe sense, from the sense of, okay, units are the lifeblood of Dragongate. It's important to have a unit. It's important to have people to have your back. It makes no sense that people like Kato, people like Nagano, people like Shuji Kondo, people like Yamato, people like Dragon Kid are not being coveted by units. And it leads to, the matches that involve units are good, but it leads to 2 or 3 matches on every card that are just like, okay, today it's going to be, I don't know. Let's see. What was on the card today? So you've got like Dragon Kid and Jason Lee versus Susumu and Kanda. So why are Dragon Kid and Jason Lee teaming? Why isn't Kame on this card? You've got Hulk and Minarita versus Kage and Punch. Why are Kage and Punch teaming? Okay, so we've got the show tomorrow that has like Ultimo Dragon, Dragon Kid, Kagetora, and Ho-Ho. Why is this match happening? So putting people, even if you're just putting people in a unit so they can lose, or if you're just putting old guys together and saying, you know what, the Torimon generation broke up, but we're still, the name is gone, but the bonds don't break. So like Kage, Shuji Kondo, Dragon Kid, Horiguchi, those guys team up exclusively. So at least there's not that random aspect to these matches on the undercard. Like, I don't know what else. What was the Korakuen match that I fucking hated? Horiguchi and Yoshida versus Araken and Punch. Like,
that's become something that we've been able to like tell, like, and I guess it's kind of in concert in this, like the idea of a touch football match, Jay.
Yeah, I understand that concept, but I don't know. Like, so I think that one of the things that Dragongate is lacking these days is kind of like and this is something that comes with, it takes time. It comes with time. And I don't know if they're waiting for the guys to bring all the guys back from Mexico to really kick it off or what, but there's kind of like a lack of urgency in a lot of these things. And so it creates a lack of conflict sometimes. And you kind of get the feeling of the entire show is a touch football game sometimes. Yeah. And that's, pro wrestling is supposed to be it's a combat sport, So I want to see people get fucking tackled. I want people to put bounties on the quarterback and hit him low. I don't want,
what you're saying is we need an Uncle Luke out there paying bounties.
Yeah. Or, I want to see like something like that. And I was talking with someone about the cage match yesterday, and there's no cage match this year, and yeah, there's probably not going to be a cage match again for a long time, and that's because the reason those cage matches in 2000, I don't know, what's considered the best cage matches?
2016,
14, 16.
Yeah.
16 is really highly thought of. That's the Yamato babyface turn.
Yamato's face turn, right? And,
Yeah.
Okay, so what hasn't happened in Dragongate since that match?
We haven't had, like, for one, cheering fans really, but I mean we had that for 3 years after that. But we haven't had like the big turn like this.
Yes.
Like we've had the demon masks, we've had other kinds of turns, but we've not had like the big like Yamato being isolated by the rest of Berserk, Doi turning on him in the cage, and then suddenly Hulk coming out for the save. We don't have like those big moments.
That big cathartic face turn, exactly. I mean, it was going to happen. I mean, it was going to happen with Shingo, but then it didn't, and it didn't happen with Eita. And now, I mean, there is nobody. I mean, there just isn't anybody that can create that. There isn't that sort of emotional equity, I guess would be the term, to have that sort of cage match moment. Like, if that moment is going to happen again, it's going to be, Dragon Dia coming to Yuki Yoshioka's rescue while the rest of the heel unit turns on him in like 2028.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's why I was surprised there wasn't a cage match, because I've been working under the assumption, just from the things that I've heard, and none of this is by any means confirmed, but that we're probably seeing SB Kento. I was under the assumption SB Kento might be back at Dead or Alive, and I was like, well, my God, you could do a cage match there just for the vehicle of bringing SB Kento back into the picture and bring him in as a face, because I think the long-term play is SB Kento as a face and Fujiwara as a heel, and that's partially because of what I've seen Fujiwara do in Mexico and seeing him work with a little bit of an edge and going, I think that's where it's at, and I think SB Kento can be a lovable figure. But when you think about that dramatic face turn, to me, it's SB Kento, and SB Kento's not an active wrestler right now.
Yeah, that, and I don't think people aren't invested in him like that yet. I mean, I think the play with those guys is just to bring all of them back as a group. I mean, if it tanks like the Millennials did, that's fine. But the individual sum of the parts will be fine, even if the initial group fails. And there's too much talent in that group for it to, unless somebody flames out. But Fujiwara is too good. We know SB is good. But
and I'm bullish on Nishikawa as well. So
yeah, I mean, he's going to get all the chances. I mean, like I said, if he is, he's good. He's going to be fine. I mean, him and Kato is the match.
Oh yeah, true.
Right. I mean, because that's what I would do is I would send Kato away as soon as Nishikawa comes back and make it so they're not together in the company for at least the first 2 years. And then you bring Kato back. Kato's been established. He goes away. People miss him. Nishikawa comes in, establishes himself during that year. And then Kato comes back. And then you've got these two tall guys that are both super over. You've got people that were excited to see Kato back, the people that have become Nishikawa fans over that year. And then you go and you sell out the Tokyo Dome for whatever the Tokyo Dome number is going to be in 2018. It'll probably be like 400 people. But I think that's the ideal. What the reality is going to be, I don't know. I mean, the reality could be, they come back piecemeal. Estrella just shows up randomly on a show, and he's instead of Araken and Horiguchi against Punch and Kage, it's Araken and Horiguchi against Punch and Estrella on match 3.
Woo boy, oh boy, that's going to be a hot one.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really know what they're gonna. You don't really know what the reality is going to be like on that. God,
we were hoping Eita was going to stick around enough to basically do the lucha version of Mochizuki Dojo with those guys when they came back. But
yeah, that's what everybody thought.
Yeah.
I mean, when he didn't leave after Otaku last year, and then they did the stuff with Fujiwara. That's where I'm sure everybody's mind went to that. Okay, he's gonna get some respect for this kid, and then that's going to be, when these guys come back, That's going to be Eita's friends. Eita's had no friends for a year, and everybody in Dragon Gate hates him because he was this terror, the top heel for 3 years, and finally there's going to be some sort of kayfabe sense of people not coming around and suddenly liking the top heel because he's not in the heel group anymore. So he goes, you guys aren't going to be my friends. I went and I found my own friends, that sort of thing. But that is not what's going to happen. So
That's a real bummer.
yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think the money is bringing them all back together, whether you do it. What's the date? The date that the August 3rd Korakuen was a date that I was looking at. That's probably King of Gate finals. Probably that you do the KOG finals there, and then those guys come back, and then you have the big setup for Otaku, because Otaku is early this year. It's in August. Or you could bring them back in September after Otaku and have that couple months to set up their matches and do their first big stuff in Osaka in November. Or bring them back until next year. And that's the other one. I mean, they've been on ice for what, 2.5 months now?
Yeah. And when they left Mexico, Kento and Fujiwara, so I watched just about everything of theirs that made tape, and it felt like, okay, this was productive. I'm ready to see them back in Japan. They've grown as wrestlers, they've grown as characters, they've done their time here. Give me a Nagoya show where they're going to pop up on it. I thought maybe it was going to be the March Nagoya show, and then it wasn't, and now we're just in this limbo game where I think the longer they're out of the picture, at least in my mind, it's actually hurting them a little bit because they had some momentum coming out of Mexico.
Well, the main thing is you have to do visa paperwork, you have to give your passport. And to give your passport, you have to be in your home country.
Yeah.
So that's essentially the long and short of it. It wasn't a plan to put them on ice. It wasn't a, okay, let's bring them back and get them ready for their comeback. It was, you guys we need your passports. You gotta come back. And Estrella is the same thing. Like, you're not going to see Estrella for a while because he has to give up his passport until the processing is done.
Yeah, I thought maybe he fell off the face of the earth. I was just talking to somebody about how I didn't know where he was. I don't know if he was in Europe or Florida or Mexico. I don't see him on the shows anymore. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, it seems like he's having a hard time getting bookings, from what I heard. I don't know why.
Yeah, I know of at least one indie that I spoke to, and they watched a match and they said, I think we're good. I don't think we need him on our show.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I mean, maybe it's just, there's so many flyers right now, and to pay for a guy to fly in from Mexico is, it's expensive. And you got to put him up in a hotel, and he doesn't speak English.
And there's better flyers to fly in from Mexico. The undercard AAA guys are having a moment. The big lucha guys, to some degree, are having a moment. At Dragongate, as you know more than anybody, it's down on the top of the mind of a lot of the English-speaking fans right now. In a rookie work-in-progress guy who didn't have a big following in Japan and hasn't been able to gain a big following in America. Right. The longer he's over here, the less prioritized he is.
Sure. I mean, yeah, that's exactly it. And he's really, really small. So, that's not going to help things. I mean, even by the size of, small high flying guys, he's small. So I'm sure that's an aspect of it too. And I don't think, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what happens with Esto. I think he's destined to be kind of the third, fourth guy on whatever team they put together, or whatever team he joins when he comes back. He's good. He's, even without his flying, I mean, his mat stuff, his amateur wrestling, he was a seriously elite amateur wrestler. So he can, I mean, more so than SB, more so than Benkei, more so than Minora. I mean, he was of the amateur wrestling club in Dragongate. I mean, he was the best. in terms of his accomplishments as an amateur wrestler. So, I mean, he's not just a flyer, but at the same time, you know, who's going to believe a guy that's 3 apples tall doing amateur wrestling in the U.S. Indies? So.
You touched on Kato a little bit ago. He's been someone that, not that I've been struggling to wrap my head around. He was someone that physically had such, like, you get an image in your mind when you see a tall guy just basically throwing around Punch Tominaga, for lack of better words. And it was something that kind of took me aback when I started seeing him like in like the modeling photos and seeing like him, like the crowd reaction with it. Is there something with like Yoshiki Kato that like personality wise that like endears him? Because I've noticed that like he gets more of a crowd response than I would think for a guy that of his size and just demeanor, I guess.
Yeah, he's a good looking dude. I mean, he's super handsome. He's got a nice body. He's likable.
He's mean mugging. He looks like he mean mugs all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I was when I was giving like the pre-first match on English commentary interview with him, and I'm like, okay, so what kind of wrestler do you want to be? And he's like, well, you know, I mean, I'm a former police officer, so I want to, you know, exude a sense of justice. And I'm like, yeah, but with your size and how you look, you're gonna be a heel. And who was with him? Nagano was with him. He's like, and Nagano's like, yes, you're gonna be a heel. And he kind of made this face. He's like, yeah, I know. So, yeah, he's destined to be, you know, it's one of two things. It's either he keeps the team with Nagano and they do a thing where Nagano's out there and Don Fuji comes and steals his soccer ball and he tries to take it to the back and Kato comes out in a police uniform and stops him and arrests him and he becomes a total comedy thing, or he turns heel and he becomes a top heel.
Yeah,
like there's only two paths. There's two paths for this guy, and you know the heel path is obviously the more preferable one because then he can do the big babyface turn and then be a legitimate big babyface guy. And he's older too. He's 27, so they're not going to take their time with him.
No, that really jumped out to me during the tag league was just how much Kato and Nagano were featured and how much, for lack of a better term, how much care they got. You know, they weren't two rookie losers. You know, those were guys that impacted the tag league in one way or another.
Yeah, and that was the point. And then, you know, they got the title match, they got the Dragongate match out of it. I thought they showed out in the Dragongate match too. So,
I agree. Well, what did you think of the tag league, by the way? I thought that was a welcome addition to what is normally a slow start to the year.
Yeah, I think the placement was definitely good. There were a lot of draws, which I didn't like, but I mean, it paid off in the end. I mean, the finals was one of the best shows that we've had in a long time, and the Twin Gate match that resulted out of it was one of the best matches we've had in a long time. And you know, we had good progress for Kato and Nagano. The stuff with Junior and Senior progressed really well. So I thought it was overall a win. I mean, I think it's a good. If KOG is getting pushed to July every year or getting pushed to later in the year, I think it's good. I think February to May is kind of a short turnaround to have one league and then another league.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you push KOG to July, then suddenly the gap becomes considerably bigger, and then it works out. I mean, I don't know why World is early this year. I mean, actually, it's not that early. If you historically, it used to be early in July, and it's only the last. God, I want to say the last 10 years, but 10 years is a really long time, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think World 2011 was sort of towards the back half of July, and ever since then, it's been closer to the end of July than the beginning of July. Yeah, it had become Umi no Hi, the holiday. That's the third Monday in July. It had been the Sunday before that for quite some time, and then it pushed to another week. But if you go back to like the Torimon and the early days of Dragongate, it was early July. And I just think it might be a matter of it was the only date that was available this year. I don't know why it's early, but it ultimately probably means nothing, but I'm excited that it's early. It just, you know, with no King of Gate, and then they're not getting the July Korakuen as a build to that show. I'm excited to see what they do.
Yeah, it's kind of rough. We've got they sent out the banner, like the tour date banner for the July series, and like there's 5 network shows, but they're all in the first 10 days of the month. So like from there's the Across doubleheader on July 11th, and then there's no network shows until World. So there's going to be the hype cycle is going to be kind of rough. And there's Okinawa shows in the middle, and those are always death. So in that sense, the schedule is not paced all that well. But at the same time, I like that we're going to get it done. We're not locked into the KOG winner being the headliner. And we can come straight out after it and come back in Korakuen the following week and kick off KOG.
Is that the plan, that July is going to be King of Gate?
It makes sense.
Okay.
When I asked, it seemed like that was the idea. But again, it was I think so, but I don't know.
Okay.
kind of thing, which is the answer to everything. If I ask a question, I think so, but it's the pro wrestling standard plans change thing. But I mean, it makes perfect sense that you kick off, you do KOG there, you run it until the August Korakuen, and the winner challenges in Otaku, because that gives you an easy main event for Dangerous Gate.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would think that in comparison to when Summer Adventure Tag League was a thing, I just always remember that that 2016 you had that face turn at Dead or Alive, leading to the crowning victory of Yamato at Kobe World, and then his momentum was completely taken out underneath him because you had Summer Adventure Tag League, and then Tozawa left him with this, at least with the working idea that after Kobe World you go straight into KOG. That way you could build up the first challenger for whomever's the Dreamgate champion at that time, and should give them a little bit easier runway than it has been in the past with the more set schedule.
Yeah, and I think there's also there's a certain expectation level of KOG winner, Dreamgate challenger wins the Dreamgate at World. And I think that if you do it at a different show, it lowers the expectation that the KOG winner is going to win the championship. Even though historically, the KOG winner has actually lost their challenge. It's been more losers than winners. But there is still that. I think that goes for anything. It probably goes for the G1 as well. The guy who wins the G1 is going to main event the Tokyo Dome, and become the champion, unless it's Naito. If it's somebody else, they're going to win, right? And or whatever other King of the Ring or whatever other league there is out there, Cinderella League or whatever has be, that if the winner of the league gets their title match, okay, Royal Rumble, right? Royal Rumble winner goes on to main event WrestleMania, and the idea is the Royal Rumble winner is probably going to be crowned the new champion. Historically, not this year, but historically. And I think removing that aspect and moving your singles league so it doesn't culminate in the winner having to challenge at the biggest show of the year, I think it takes, if they don't succeed, it takes away some of the negative stigma that comes from that. That if they win and they only challenge at Dangerous Gate and they lose, it's not as bad as they won King of Gate and they went to World and then they got beat. I think it takes away some of that, for lack of a better term, stench that would come with that level of failure.
Yeah, and that stigma that I mean, you mentioned when King of Gate then lose at Kobe World, that KZ basically like weight around their neck of being like, oh, they've had so many dream keys, but when will they actually get that win? And it's easier that way.
Sure. Yeah, I 100%. And I don't know. And it allows you to go in a more off the path choice, because if you're going for the Kobe World main event, it means you have to go with KZ. It means you have to go with Yamato. You have to go with Yoshioka. It means you have to go with a guy who can main event Kobe World. If it's a main event for if it's a main event for Otaku, it can be Kato. It could be, somebody else that doesn't necessarily have to have the pressure of being a Kobe World main eventer.
It redefines expectations, which
Sure.
in a way, this Dead or Alive kind of is as well, because the cage match is now no longer on the table for a while. It kind of lets you like reset. Like now, I guess I would say the disappointment that Aichi is not getting their cage match that they feel like is their cage match. After a while, that tendency will drop, and then you're able to do more things with that.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. God, again, I don't know. It was for a while that we have to do this cage match in Nagoya because the expectation is there now, and we're not gonna draw if there's not a cage match here. So you have to force the cage match because that's how we draw in Nagoya. But now, okay, so what? 2016 was 6,000 people. Okay, 2016, I don't know if that's a real number or not. So let's look at 2019. 2019, 4,500 as a full sellout. And that was the cage match that Shimizu lost, and they turned on Benkei. So 4,500. Last year was a good crowd. By COVID standards, it was a good crowd. It was 2,600. I don't know what the standard is now. Is 3,000? Is it 3,000? Is it 3,500? But the idea was to get that 4,500. There needed to be a cage match. But now I don't think 4,500 is possible under any circumstance. So I think using this period of this kind of like rebuilding period to kind of retrain the Nagoya people that there isn't a cage match here every year. Last year's card was weak, and it did 26. I think it was our best draw of the year.
It outdrew every other show in that building, with the exception of one G1 show that did 2,700. And I'm glad you brought this up because it's kind of become a reoccurring theme of ours when they go to the smaller building in Nagoya of, hey, New Japan outdraws everybody everywhere, but in Nagoya, Dragongate seems closer to New Japan than any other promotion in any other city, seemingly.
Yeah, we've got Ultimo Dragon, Dragon Kid, SP Kento, Gifu is close by, so there's Skywalker, Minoura, all those guys. You can't discount having a lot of people from that area to sell 100 tickets to. If you've got 8 guys on the roster and they all sell 60 tickets to somebody, that's 500 people right there. So. But
those smaller Nagoya shows, they I wish they'd put them on the network. I know they did the December or November one, whatever that Ultimo Dragon Kid singles match that turned into a tag was, but they feel like a big event again. That feels like a market, and those shows really matter.
Yeah, they're over 1,000 people, and that's aside from Corkin, over 1,000 people doesn't happen for us anywhere. But I don't know why they're not on the network. I was talking with them in December, right before the one that was on the network, and I'm just like, so is this gonna be on the network from now on? And they're like, yeah, maybe. And then when we were doing the video for the March schedule, I'm like, why is it Nagoya on? They're just like, well, we don't do Nagoya. So
it was a bummer because that whole card looked great.
Yeah, and we got most. It was on YouTube.
Yeah, I think there were 3 of the matches on YouTube, and one of them ended up being the Mochizuki's kind of prolonged angle on a tag match. But it would have felt more momentous had it been on the network. But nevertheless, I think 3,000 for Dead or Alive this year. I would think people would be high-fiving in the room as much as you can, because again, 2,600 was as good as anything outside of a 1G1 show that had 2,700 last year.
Yeah, but that was also, comparing to 2019 and even comparing to last year, like it's the standards are totally different. And again, I don't want to compare to what other promotions are doing, because that's just it's not productive, because the circumstances for us and for New Japan and for Stardom and for Noah and for Big Japan and for Ice Ribbon, everybody's circumstances are very, very different right now. So we can really only worry about what we're doing in our own house. And let's see. Yeah, I mean, we're 2 weeks out and there's no sold out sections. I mean, I'd be over the moon with 35.
Yeah.
I really want 4. I want at least 4 for World this year. It's going to be card dependent. It's just do what you got to do and hope that, so the one thing, again, so this is, I said, can't compare what we're doing to what other people are doing. So I'm going to talk about what other people are doing. Just in the sense that this is the drawback of the Dragongate business. The positives of the Dragongate business model are compact, lightweight. We can put everybody on the bus, 3 people in the truck driving the ring truck. We can come to your town. We can put on a show. We can make a profit. We can come to your show. We can come to your city, put on a show, draw 300 people, all on our own without any external staff. Carry the ring up 5 flights of stairs, do a show in a hotel room or a hotel banquet hall, put everybody back on the bus and go back home, and everybody's asleep in their own bed at the end of the night. But the drawback of that is there is no room for failure now. There's no room to take chances. We can't, and so to not name names, but we can't go into 4,000 seat venues and do 700 people, or 900 people, or do we can't take that chance. So because of that, everything has to be completely calculated, completely planned, completely within the way things have always been. So right now we don't have any room to move from otaku to sumo hall, or from otaku to yoyogi, or from to go size up in a venue, because it would be disaster.
Yeah, in the pandemic, where most people scaled up just in an effort to fit as many fans as they could in the building, Dragongate almost scaled down.
Because and like the rent discounts, most these venues, like, it was cheaper to rent the Seibu Dome and put however many people they put in there, because it would be the same cost of doing but like you said, to try and even at 50% capacity, filling as many people in there, and we didn't have the money to pay that extra rent, because if we didn't get the 5,000 people in there, then it would be a fucking disaster. So, that's the drawback of a core roster of great young talent, and great matches, and the fans are into the show, and we can go anywhere and do a show. But right now we're in a period where there's going to be no chance taking, because there can't be. So because of that, we really need to see a rebound in like another year of God. What do we do in World? What did we do at World last year? Kobe Pro Wrestling Festival was.
You did under 1,000 for one of the World shows. I think the second night was just over
25 for the second night, and it was like 1,700 for the first night.
Oh, that's right. That's not under 1,000 or 2,000. Sorry.
Yeah, the first night was the Dragon show. That was always going to be a disaster, and that was never going to be good. But I mean, 25. It was down year over. So if you consider the second night, again, this is total copium math here, but second night in 2021 was Yoshino's retirement show. It was 3,600 people. So second night was 2,500. So it was 1,000 people down for night 2. But another year of 2,500 in World would not be good. So.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Let me talk about risk taking real quick as we kind of wrap up with you, Jay. But the day we're recording this, at least on our time zone, I don't know where it's at over for you now, but it's the 20th anniversary of El Numero Uno 2003. I have a big article on voicesofwrestling.com where I talk to Genki Horiguchi himself, as well as a bunch of other people that have fond memories of said event. Jay, I went back and listened to, I believe it's an 11-year-old podcast now, your timeline podcast dedicated to this era of Toryumon. But in the moment in 2023, what are your memories of this show?
It's gonna be on the network soon. Finally, the entire show. The match has been on the network for a while, but the entire show is coming up. I don't remember what I said 10 years ago.
It was your big point on it was you were watching the results live and you said, God, this show looks like it sucks. And then all of the feedback as people left the building were, hey, this show is really good.
Yeah. Okay. I was working this really shit job at that time, and I had to be I had to leave the house at 7 a.m. So the show wasn't over when I left the house, and this was 2003. So like I didn't, no smartphones and no internet at work. So the show wasn't over at the time I left the house. So all I were the match times and the results for probably the battle royal up through the first, maybe through the semifinals.
Yeah.
Of so it's like 3 minutes and because everybody was expecting Milano versus somebody, like it was going to be Milano versus Magnum or Milano versus Shima or Milano versus somebody in the finals that year. And it wasn't the Horiguchi results that jumped out first. It was that Milano got eliminated by countout. And I'm just like, what the fuck? So I was already mad about that. And then it was like so Horiguchi won with a backslide in 2 minutes, and Shima versus Yoshino was 3 minutes, and so what the fuck is this show?
Yeah, and Shima beat Yoshino after Yoshino goes on this run, where he's undefeated in block play, wins the welterweight title, during the tour, and then Shima beats him in 3 minutes.
Yeah, and Yoshino beating Suwa was the other one. I mean, all of those things combined, and then I went and I worked for 8 hours at a job I didn't like, so I was just mad the entire day. And I come home and I go to the message board, the Japanese message boards for all the people that went to the show, and they were talking about how like it was just this completely and utterly amazing, greatest show they've ever seen. And I mean, it was. Horiguchi has lived off it since then. Wasn't supposed to. I mean, it was supposed to just be this meme thing, this thing for one night, but he's still here 20 years later doing the exact same thing. And it's just as pop, that's when you want to make a guy without making him into a guy, if that makes sense. Like, if you want to, like, this guy's not going to be, he's not going to bump Milano from his spot. He's not going to bump Mochizuki from his spot, but he's a guy that's going to be a threat. He's going to be dangerous. He's going to be a guy that he can lose. If we do 150 shows this year, he can lose on 138 of them. But on the 139th show, he's going to pin somebody, and everybody's going to believe it.
Yeah, no, it's that's the general sentiment from the people that I talked to as well, and obviously my thoughts on it is, it's what they were trying to do was not intentional, but what they did was masterful, and they're reaping the rewards even 20 years later. You said a name real quick. I don't want to keep you too long. I'm sorry, but you said a name that I'm glad you did, because it reminded me I wanted to ask you about this. Have you had any interaction? I'm assuming you don't know him personally, but have you had any interaction with Suwa on Twitter? Because for so long, he was like a man in the shadows, and then we had heard certain things that he has his public Twitter account, and he seems to be a very happy guy. I think he's going to a Dragongate show next week.
He's coming to the show in Yokosuka next week. Yeah,
it seems like a very nice story, all things considered.
Yeah, so I don't have any personal interaction with him. My personal interaction with him was we were friends. I friended him on Facebook back when Facebook was a thing, and I shared a Dragongate thing, and he blocked me. But no, he got. I mean, he had that bad injury. After he came back, he got that bad injury at Kobashi's retirement show. that really bad neck injury, and he got that illness from it, where like the muscle in his neck and in his upper back and like his shoulders calcified, so it was turning to bone. And I mean, he was Mango Fukuda, Bear Fukuda, actually has the same condition, and he was in the hospital. He just got released from the hospital recently, last month before, and he was in the hospital for like 3 years because of it. Like literally, like he went into the hospital before the pandemic and was there the entire time because he had to be had to be bedridden, had to be hospitalized. So Sua had the same thing, and then there's also the mental aspect of that. But yeah, he's come out of it. He's come back into the public eye, and Don Fuji has been very friendly with him and everybody else from that period. Anthony and Shachi and Horiguchi and all those guys have been just reached out to him when he came on to Twitter. I mean, I don't know if there's anything going on behind the scenes or if it's just what's been going on in public, but there was one of like his sponsors or one of his business associates was also an associate of Don Fuji, and he was like, so let's do a talk show with you guys. And Sue was like, no, I've got nothing good to say. That's not going to happen. And he was like, I swore that the only time I would ever go to a Dragongate show would be Don Fuji's retirement show. And Fuji's like, no. And Fuji was just like, no, you should come now. Do it now. I'm here. I'm here every show. And he's also like, I guess goes to Yokosuka a lot, and maybe I think the same shop that Susumu gets the jackets from, and he's like the jacket ambassador. I think same business associates there. So he's gonna come to the show in Yokosuka as a fan, not like come in to do anything, but I guess he's gonna come and see everybody. So that's,
it seems like a very nice story.
Yeah, that's good. I don't know. I was thinking maybe I should go, but I'm not gonna go. I don't go to house shows. I'm not a wrestling fan anymore. It's a business now.
I just think that with Sua just like even showing up, like I know 2019 kind of in a lot of ways it was like, hey, we don't have to go to leave that relationship or with like the people that left, but in the intervening years, we don't have to leave it on that bad note. And having like Sua just show up to a Dragongate show, just as a fan, just appearing, like that's just a nice thing to happen. Like it's just something, it's like, okay, at the very least we can say like, all right, years later Sua went to a show. Maybe it's not like he's going to ever wrestle again or appear in the ring. It's just good that happened.
Yeah, and it's not Shima taking advantage of the cameras being on moment and forcing a handshake out of people or anything disingenuous like that. It's actually just old friends coming to say hello. He was Sua was, of all the guys that left during that time period, he was the one that it was the worst. He was the one that hated everybody. He hated Magnum, he hated Shima, he hated everybody except Don Fuji. And he hated everybody and wanted nothing to do with anybody. And we all get old, we all calm down. It's just time to it's good. I hope he comes, shake hands, has a good time, watches the show, enjoys it, and if nothing beyond that happens, that's fine.
Yeah,
but it's cool.
Was he the one who came up with social dance wrestling, or was he just applied that?
That was I don't even remember where that came.
I guess I attribute it to him.
It was a 2chan meme. I think he was. I mean, his thing was when he left, when he showed up in Noah, he said, "For the first time in my life, I'm a pro wrestler."
Mm-hmm.
Kind of mocking the. I mean, the social dance stuff was more 2003 period where like that was the bulk of the show was that stuff.
Right, especially if like Do Fixer at that time.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I was we're gonna do English commentary for a couple older matches next month, in June. So, because
I'm really excited for those, by the way. I'm glad you guys are doing that.
yeah, they couldn't. I gave a list of matches. I mean, this was like 8 months ago. I was like, I want to do English commentary for these matches. And they're like, okay, let me look. And they went and they didn't look. And then I said, go. Did you look? And they're like, yeah, okay, let me go look. And then they're like, well, we can only find the only footage that's left is the version with commentary over it already, and that would be difficult to do another set of commentary over. It would be very distracting, and I personally wouldn't want to do it either. But I guess they found, I don't even remember the list of matches I gave, but the one match I remember is the first four-way from 2003. So we're doing English commentary for that. But like, I was talking to somebody who was in the match, but isn't in the company anymore yesterday about this actually, because I wanted to get some thoughts on it. And we were talking about how like it on the network, we're not going to be able to show the entrances because for copyright reasons, we're not going to be able to show the entrances. But like that match was like that Corkin show was it was a 4-match card, because everybody was in the main event. There was nobody else to be on. There was nobody else to be on the show. I don't remember what the other matches were. I think the other matches
It was Mori and Doi versus Kines and Saito. There was a Stalker versus Awasa match. Taru versus Berlinetta Boxer, and Toro Washi versus Yoon. The Crazy Max era of Yoon Gawayoshi.
God, that's an awful card.
It really is, right?
Is that really the card?
Yeah.
Okay, the opener's good. 4 minutes, 7 minutes. God, yeah, this is hideous. But like, it doesn't matter that was the undercard, because just the entrances from this match, you get, M2K come out on the kickboards and the cool music. And then, Crazy Max has the great entrance music, and they've got the great, and all those guys are super over. So they come out and it's like this huge, awesome thing. And then you get a fashion show, and then you get a dance in whatever order it was in. And by the time the entrances are done, you're satisfied. You've paid for your ticket just on the entrances. So
Yeah.
like, that was the pay. I mean, that's the payoff to going through that period of only having, here's dancing and it's all this gaga entrances, because then when it's time to put all those pieces together and put all the stars in one place and do all of that in the same spot, you get this unforgettable moment. And we're not going to have it on the English commentary version, unfortunately, but I think it's going to be the unclipped version of the match. So I think it's going to be the first time the full 26 minutes.
Oh, has it always been clipped?
The TV version is clipped.
Oh, I don't think I realized that.
Subtle clipping. I don't know. Is the match on YouTube?
I'm sure it's on Daily Motion if it's not on YouTube, but I've never realized that. I thought it was in full.
So let's see. What used to be on here? I think it actually might have been a video that was only the entrances, and that itself was like 17 minutes long.
So there's a version of it on Daily Motion that is about 28 minutes long, but that has a little bit of entrance and a little bit of post match.
Okay, well the post match was really long.
Yeah, it doesn't have the full post match, but it definitely has some sort of Milano footage after the match.
Yeah, because he challenges Magnum, and it turns into a cage match, and then the Italian Connection breaks up. So I mean, like, the entrances in the post match were just as long as the match itself, all combined, if I remember right. But anyway, we're doing English commentary for that match. I think the other matches are Jimmy's versus Mad Blanky unit disbands match. What was the other one? Hold on. If I scroll through the chat history, I can find it. So give me a...
That's a good one. That's one I hadn't thought of, but obviously a great Kness moment in that, and a match that I think has become underrated for whatever reason. Even though that was during the hot period, I think people leave off that match on some lists, which is a shame.
Afterworld. And Pac versus KZ is the other match.
Oh, wonderful.
I feel like I should put Mochizuki versus Shingo in there somewhere.
I like that they're having the last match from Hakata Starlanes on there.
Yeah, I mean, I picked it because it's a Pac match.
Mm-hmm.
I think people might be. I mean, I would want my ideal situation on this is we do all three of them and we pick one of them and put it up for free.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to want to do that though, just because they're probably not going to want to do that.
Yeah,
I say that with great resignation in my voice. But, I'll see if I can talk them into putting at least one of those up. I know the three-way itself, the show with the three-way is also coming to the network over the summer. They went out of order. They're going back to Numero, so it'll be Numero Uno this month, next month, and I think then we could skip ahead to the match with the three-way. So maybe we could put them up at the same time.
Oh, that'd be neat.
This is actually, if we actually get to do this, we haven't talked about Dead or Alive at all.
well, let's touch on it. Let's touch on it before we get out of here. May 5th. Oh, hey, we go in all directions here. May 5th, Kakuta versus Skywalker. We talked a bunch about that up top. The Twin Gate match, Kai and Ishin teaming up against Congo. Triangle Gate, Natural Vibes versus Gold Class. Brave Gate, Dragon Dia versus Jason Lee. A little surprised they didn't put the Brave Gate as the YouTube match, but it instead is UT's return. It's something, at least for me as like a big UT fan, I'm happy to see that, but it's interesting that they are giving him that kind of position on his return.
Yeah, I mean, it's hometown, so he's going to get a good reaction, and I think it'll be a good match, and it's got Nagano in it, so in terms of being the free YouTube match, you put Nagano in there, and Kagetora can catch him, and it'll be good, and then UT can do, it'll be emotional, and it'll be a good entrance, and he'll get a good reaction. So I think it's a good for the opening spot. I think the days of the Big Show's championship match going on first, I think we might be past that. I don't know for sure. Like I said, plans change so much that could be the plan right now. And then one day we could get to the day of the match and they'll just say, okay, you guys are going on first. And that's it.
What do you like on this show, Jay? I know on my end, I think it's a pretty loaded card. Jason versus Dia really jumps out to me as something that could be special, but everything on down, I think the Ultimo tag at least serves a purpose as they continue to flirt with he and Diamante doing something big, and even Marufuji is well past his prime, but I think the other parts of that match can make it worthwhile, and I think all the title matches look pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, Jason and Dia is a good match. It's a great match, actually. I mean, the Brave Gate has been in a certain state for a while now, and
known as the Keisuke Okuda effect, where it just flattens everything around you for an extended period of time.
I mean, the Brave Gate in general, since turning into the white belt, so to speak, has been in a certain, there's been ups and there's been downs with it. SB's run was pretty good, but it wasn't super long, and Dia had the great match with Fujiwara and the great match with SB, but he also really only fought Hyo and SB during that entire reign, so it was kind of repetitive. And then I'm super into the idea of Jason being Brave Gate champion for a really, 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 really long time.
Yes, this could be Pac in 2011.
Yeah, I mean, I'm perfectly on board with the idea of him just going out and having great matches with this championship. Daya here, do Mochizuki Jr. in Tokyo, do Nagano at a show in Across. Just go out, have great matches with these guys, be a great champion, have exciting matches with all of these guys, and then when Fujiwara comes back, or whenever there is an evident next person that should have this championship arises, that's when you do it. But Jason is like one of the best wrestlers in the company, one of the best wrestlers in the world. He should have this championship for a very, 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 very long time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is the time to do it. He's in the right spot in his career. I think he's got the right. We talked about natural vibes. Being so good it's almost a problem. And I think if this reign could last long enough to get UT and Jackie out of his unit, that gives you 2 more matches there. There's a lot of different things he can play with.
Yeah, I mean, I think him against Jack is, that's the World Brave Gate match, right? Even if they're in the same unit, that's got to be. If I was booking, that would be my match.
Yeah, that's. You can always go back to Hyo, but I don't really want them to do that.
I don't want that.
Yeah,
I don't. You can't do that.
It could be Jason versus Dragon Kid.
Yeah. If he hadn't fucking lost to Hyo.
Yeah.
No, but I got nothing to get. I'm sorry, I just dunked on Heel pretty hard, and that's unfortunate. But he's been heel for a very long time, and he needs to not be heel.
We had this conversation last week. I noted I'm ready for even if it's just to turn him heel again down the road. I'm ready for the heel babyface turn. Yeah,
like him. He's been heel since before the pandemic. And that's a really, really long time. Anyway, speaking of Hyo, his next match, you're right, Dragon and Diamante. This also feels like the mask match is sooner than later on that, and they're getting towards that. I don't know if it's going to be Mexico. I know they want to announce a Torimon Mexico show. Obviously, it's not going to be Dragon Mania, because if it was Dragon Mania, that would be in like 2 weeks, and they don't have a show announced. But I know they do want to do a Torimon show in Mexico, so I don't know if it would be for World or for there, but it does. You're right. It, like you said, I think it feels like it's coming. It's coming soon. Like we're seeing the light at the end of that tunnel. And I think you take Diamante's mask, and then you put him in gold class, and then you sell it to Tokyo Dome.
Okay, we're on the same page.
Yeah, 100%.
You've got to get that run out of him. Like it seems like it's been bubbling now for like a year and a half.
Yeah, honestly, I thought he was beating Yoshioka.
That was I loved what they did with Yoshioka's run of the former Dreamgate champions, and I thought, well, God, if he beats Shun, it's either got to be Doi or they have to go back to Diamante and Osaka, because they had the King of Gate match in Osaka in 2022.
Exactly. That was my thought on it. Was I remember asking at the end of Final Gate, like, okay, so Yoshioka's beating Skywalker after Hulk, so there's going to be something with Hulk, and it's going to cost Skywalker the match, and that's Hulk's babyface turn. And they're like, yes. And then plans changed, but during that time, I was like, okay, well, if he beats Skywalker, and then what happens? I think the story you tell is he's gone through this tough road, he's beat up, and he goes in and he just gets waxed by Diamante. But they had him get waxed by Skywalker instead. I thought they were going to go to Diamante, and then Diamante would get a token defense against somebody, maybe Shimizu or somebody in the interim, and then he loses at kind of the Ricochet course, and that Ricochet won the championship in Osaka, got the token defense against Uha, and then lost to Yamato in Nagoya. I thought they would do that, and it would go to Kikuta from there. But there was a better story to tell, and Diamante got injured twice in the interim, so sure that doesn't help things either. But no, I think you take his mask off and you put him in gold class, and you run with it. He wants to be a babyface. People want him to be a babyface. Do it. I think you do it. And, Ultimo can take his mask, and it's not going to hurt him one bit because nobody in the world would expect him to win that match.
Good. Okay, I'm glad you're as high on Diamante as we are.
Yeah, but then he's got to be good. That's the thing.
Yes.
He's got to be he's good, but how can I say this? He's got to be better than what he's good at now, because he's good at being in there and being the tyrant that throws the tiny baby faces around and catches all their complicated stuff. But he had a match with Kato on one of these shows earlier this year. I think it might have been in Fukuoka, where it wasn't good at all.
Oh, I remember this one. Yeah.
And I don't know if he was mad about something or if he was annoyed, but it didn't work. And I remember thinking, okay, if this is a real indication of what his matches look like when he's not catching a small guy, then maybe he needs more work. So I'm behind him. I'm behind the idea of unmasking him, turning him babyface, and running with him. But he's got to be good when that happens.
When he gets the football, you're not just expecting him to go down the field. You're expecting him to take over the game.
Right. He's going to bring it. It's like Bo Jackson in Tecmo Bowl type stuff with him.
KCC, that was a reference to a video game before you were born.
Family Guy made a Tecmo Bowl joke once. I completely understand what you're talking about. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Triangle Gate match is good. Either way, it's good. I think keeping it on Gold Class is fine.
Hulk in Gold Class has stayed fresher longer than I thought it would. I thought I would get one tour out of that and then be sick of it, but it's been okay.
Yeah, I mean, Hulk, it's a good spot for him because he's got young guys that can really carry a heavy load around him, and he can come in and do his spots, and they can set him up perfectly. And it's also a place where he doesn't have to go back to being that BB Hulk as a babyface that you would, okay, he leaves Z-Brats, he turns babyface, he's going to go back to, funny haircut and long pants and have to be that version of BB Hulk. This allows him to be what he is in 2023. And I think it works for everybody. And also it lets people cheer him again. And again, like I talked about with Minora earlier, that his presence brings up the entire group, and the entire group brings him up as well. So keeping the championships on them, I think, is the right call. I don't know where. Again, this goes back to then. Okay, they beat Natural Vibes. Who do they challenge next? Who challenges them next? And I think a lot of people were calling for a D-Courage versus Gold Class as the big World Triangle Gate match. But if Kikuta's champion, you can't do that. So maybe you put somebody else with Daya and Yuki or whatever.
I would feel like that you really wouldn't want to have D-Courage as Triangle Gate champions with it's just being a trio, because you have to then accept the fact that you have those three guys only in that one match and only doing one thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is why you need to get more people in the unit.
Yeah. That was my big unit thing, was you have a whole bunch of 3 and 4 people units, and your heel unit's basically 5. You need to fill out those numbers.
And even though they're 5, they've been 3 more often than not over the last half year, with guys either being out of town or being injured. I mean, they were, Diamante and Ishin were both out for, entire month of March. So it's just the same 3 guys over and over again. And it's just Hyo getting beat over and over and over again. But Ishin being back helps, because Ishin, what do you guys think of Ishin since he's come back?
I actually loved the heel turn. I like the idea that he kind of was the dead behind his eyes, zombie character for a little bit. I know Case grew tired of it sooner than I did, but since he's come back, I know he's added a little bit of size to him, and it's throwing people around a little bit more. And I had to remind myself, oh yeah, no, he could put on weight. His dad, he was a small Sekatori, but he still was a sumo wrestler. And
Sure.
I've liked what he's done from the heel turn. It's been this next step that I've wanted to see from him for a while.
Yeah.
Fukuoka made me really excited for him because I was struggling with the presentation. I mean, he seemed. I think the idea was that he would seem cerebral, and this really popped out to be a Kobe 2 weeks ago. But it seemed like he was supposed to be cerebral, but he came across as lethargic. And then he ramped up the intensity this past weekend, and it reminded me, oh, that's right, this guy's very good.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's still very much a work in progress. I think he's still figuring out where he wants to go with this, and like you said, bulking up. Like he's getting pretty big. You know, he's got his brother's a pro bodybuilder now, so he's got somebody to work out. He's got somebody to lift with, and somebody to kind of motivate him on that. You know, I think that he can take over and move up. You know, if they move Diamante out of this group, or if they move Kai out. Kai's been a heel for a really long time too, so Kai is probably due for a turn sooner than later. You know, I think Ishin can move up and be number 2 in this group to Skywalker's number.
Yeah, I'd be into that. I'd like to see him, and it'll just take time. I don't doubt that he can do it. I'd like to see him nail this character because, again, I like the initial heel turn. I mean, I loved what they did with him at Junior last year. The singles match, the tag match, the half alliance, the turn. I thought all of that was executed great. And, as we talked about, I think Junior's only gone up from there, but Ishin, it's been a rocky heel turn for me. But if he presents himself like he did this past weekend, I'm not only going to be into the act, I think this match is going to be really good.
Yeah, and he says he's going for Keno, and I mean Keno will give it back to him if there's anybody that will stand there and take it and then give it back. It's Keno and Kondo. So and then Kai will be there to he can do the big guy stuff with Kondo, and he can take a lot of Ishin's I'm sure Ishin is going to get foot stomped to death at some point in this, but he'll be better out of it. I think a KOG run for him, not a win, but I think a good run for him is.
I think that would do a lot of good
in the cards. Yeah, maybe. I don't know about. I mean, I don't know if it's a league, if it's a tournament, if it's happening. I don't know. But if it's quarterfinals and semifinals, getting a pin over somebody, like you could have him pin Shimizu, for example, or tap out Shimizu, and it would be, I think you would get if that happened, just because.
Yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't hurt, like you're not beating somebody like Yoshioka or somebody that you don't want to sacrifice, but I think it would be good. Even like Machine J, like Ishin and Machine J, because Machine J has always been positioned as the alpha of the second generation guys, and he's had a Dreamgate title match. He doesn't necessarily need to have a KOG run, so having him and Ishin in the first round and Ishin tapping him out wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing.
And I feel like him and SMJ have pretty good chemistry together too.
They do.
I liked the last fall when they were running more with like the second generation stuff, like SMJ versus Junior and Ishin. I liked the when those two were in the ring together. They were showing a lot. I felt like was there anything else on this card that kind of was speaking out to you guys or Jay?
For me, there's nothing. What about you for you, Jay?
No, I mean the Yamato Yoshioka, the special tag team match, I feel a certain way about. I just kind of hope it ends with Yoshioka pinning Dragon Kid or Dragon Kid pinning Yamato, and everybody shakes hands and it ends there. If that's what happens, I'll consider it good. If not, I probably won't be happy.
Yeah, if they're paying to put him on the show, he does not need a win as well. Like at the very least, yeah. If it's just something that is just like, oh yeah, and also Marufuji was there, then
yeah. Well, it also depends on whether he wins their championship the day before.
That's right.
So, yeah, if you're, I'm rooting for him to win in one of those matches. One of those two matches, and it's not the one on our show. Because if he wins that match, it means we don't have to deal with anything else on our show.
The good news is that I can't put it past Noah to have Marufuji win that. It seems very much in the cards for them right now. So
it depends on whether they got Ibushi or not, right?
I think things are leaning no in that direction.
Yeah, I mean the dollar amount. Well, the amount. It's a lot of money, but at the end of the day, I don't think anybody in Japan takes a chance on him.
I just kind of got the sense when all that was going down that everyone was just going to throw their hands up and walk away from the vehicle with him.
Well, he's totally toxic over here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Noah would, if anyone would, it would be Noah. And they offered him a lot of money, but the guy the guy from the text messages works in Noah now, so I don't think it's happening. But you know, that would be Marufuji wins the championship, Ibushi shows up. You know, that would be a reason for them to put the championship on him. But that works out in our favor because it means he wouldn't be challenging for our championship. But who knows? And then main event, I think Kikuta has to win here. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm 50-50 on it. I don't know. You know, I really like what Shun does. I'd like to see him. You know, he had the world main event in 2021 as a member of Masquerade, but I think he only elevated himself from that time period, and I would like to see this version of him get that big world main event because I think he's earned it. But it's a little bit, and we talked about this a few weeks ago. You know, it's a little bit of the Sami Zayn Roman Reigns situation where Kikuta's so hot right now. I think you have to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself if you're making a mistake not putting the belt on him. And at this point, you know, we won't get another network show until the Kyoto double shot the 2 days before. I don't know what direction they go with it.
Yeah, they're going to announce the next stage of the SSW quest. Shun said he's going to announce that on the show in Yokosuka next week. So on Sunday, I'm sure they'll announce it for the Kyoto show. So you know, the last stage or the last two stages will be there. I mean, I don't know what else. I don't really know what else you can do. Make him run the Z-Brats gauntlet or do.
Yeah, I think they did that with Hulk and Mad Blanky, where they did the series of singles matches, and I think Doi ended up with the Dreamgate, and that's probably the next thing in line.
Yeah, I mean, you've already done the 3-on-1.
And like I said earlier, you know, the 3-on-1 came across so much better than I thought it was going to that I almost don't want them to dip their toes back in that pond. Just leave that as is and leave the memory alone.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, you can make him wrestle. You can make him wrestle Ichikawa or something, just something totally embarrassing. Or you can make him. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. I'd be perfectly happy with them not doing anything, to be honest. But you know, and I think it's different from the Zayn and Reigns thing because Zayn is over despite best efforts, right?
Yes.
Whereas they're making a really concerted effort to show that Kikuta is willing, able, and ready to overcome whatever gets put in front of him. And I mean, I think it reflects. It would be really, really bad for him to lose because it just shows that they went this far and then blew it. I mean, it's the perfect story, right? I mean, it's 2 years to the day, same opponent, roles are reversed. He's over, he's popular. Champion's not popular. You know, he's vanquishing the heel. I mean, if he loses, he's a total geek. I hate to say it, but I don't know. I think it's got to be Kikuta. It's got to be.
It's the first time in a while, you know, so much of Dragongate booking, even after, you know, me watching it constantly, you know, for a decade at this point, so much of Dragongate booking catches me by surprise still, and I go, I never would have thought about that. And this is the one match where as soon as Shun won the belt, I was like, oh my god, dead or alive, they have to do this. They have to do this match, and I'm glad that they have. And Kakuta luckily has sustained the momentum that he's had, so I'm very excited for it.
It's interesting you say that, because I think that as soon as it happened, I saw a lot of people that went to KZ against him at World as the rematch and the eventual.
Oh no, that was not on my radar. But I also think if KZ won the Dreamgate, I'm all for it. I'm a little past putting time and effort into thinking of ways that he could do it. For me, this was, again, I'm a Shun guy. If I was in Cork and I'd have my Shun rally towel with me, he won the belt. Kakuta has this story, and he's only getting hotter. This is the match you have to do. So,
yeah,
I think you're right. Kakuta probably looks like a geek if he doesn't win, and it's just a matter of whether or not you want to sacrifice him for continued Shun dominance or not, which is it's a tough call.
Okay, if Shun wins, if it were you, you've got the light up pen that they sell. That I actually have sitting on my desk right now. You've got that. You're writing. Where do you? Skywalker wins. Where are you guys going with it?
I think KZ is an option, and I also think you can't rule out Ben K being an option for World.
He just lost though.
Yeah,
that's a quick turnaround. I mean, Ben K is a good.
As long as Final Gate, wasn't he? Yeah.
As long as Skywalker is champion, Ben K is always a good shout.
Yep.
But
I think the issue with Shun continuing on this heel stretch is that Yoshioka, when he was trying to take on all past ghosts, those were a lot of the big baby faces.
Yeah, exactly.
So the runway is not very open for him, I feel like. Because
you could do... I mean, KZ is the obvious one.
You'd almost have to wonder, like, and I know that he has pretty much said, like, I'm staying away from this. I'm spending this year teaming up. Like, you would have to invite the Yamato question at a certain point.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Yamato just got beat too, though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then my mind goes, well, you've got this Shun Mochizuki Dojo split story that, I don't know if other people care about it, but I always like when those two are in the ring with one another. But you go down the list, who lost after Yamato? It was Mochizuki. And I think
Mochi's fat these days too, man.
Well, that's Yamato still has he's barely hanging on to it, but he has some aura of youth left in him. Yeah. Whereas if they go with Mochizuki, it's all of a sudden it's this company of young guys, sub 25-year-old wrestlers, and then Mochizuki's headlining your big show. And although I think we would all enjoy the match, I think it's counterproductive in the long run.
Yeah, and honestly, with Yamato, I'm very, very against the idea of putting him in the Mochizuki role of being old guy that occasionally steps up. Like I think that's why the reason that we're having this conversation right now is because there's nobody in the in between. And Doi's gone, Eita's gone. The guys that would be those filler defenses, Susumu. I mean, Susumu can still go there, but he lost not that long ago. I mean, it's over a year now, so you could come back to him, but those guys.
It would take a lot of rehab, because once he lost to Kai, he shifted into M3K, but it seemed like he shifted into a much less important role.
Sure.
Is Doi, going to DDT and going to All Japan, does that raise his profile? Is Kakuta versus Doi or Kakuta versus Shun? Is that something that could be explored, or is that death at the box office?
Well, I mean, I think neither. I just think it's not an option. I think these the freelance guys are put in the spots that they're put in because that's where they are. And I don't think Doi. I think that if Doi was still, yeah, I don't think he's on the board for that. I mean, I think that for him, the further out we go and the longer he goes as a freelancer, the possibility just decreases. I mean, I think
that makes sense.
Him versus Yoshioka when he first turned freelance, like in Osaka or something, made a lot of sense. Or being his last match before going freelance made a lot of sense. But it didn't go that way. So I think now I actually think we're going to see again, I don't know, but I just think we're going to see less of Doi. We've still got, his homecoming show is going to be in Dragongate. It's going to be in Nara in August. He announced it already. So he'll be around, until then. But, as we get to that, like the 1 year point when, the contract comes up again, that's when we have to start rethinking things. Maybe he comes back and then he gets put back in. Maybe, the money out on the free market wasn't good. Maybe it goes that way, or maybe, the personal training stuff pays off and he's still eating good on the freelance tickets, or maybe Suzuki brings him to New Japan. I mean, you don't know. So because of that, I don't think he gets I don't think he gets those spots anymore. Maybe if he's got dates and he's got a spot in New Japan, maybe he brings Doki and Suzuki over and they challenge for the Triangle Gate, and Doi's the one that gets pinned. Maybe something like that. But I don't think Doi is a Dreamgate challenger, Eita is a Dreamgate challenger, Kondo is a Dreamgate challenger. I just don't think we get it anymore. Which sucks because we could use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, having Kondo just to even like pop a Champion Gate number was something that I feel like we were hoping for when he came in, but it became pretty clear what reality was with those kind of contracts.
I think the idea of these freelance guys being kind of like hired guns for unit, I mean, there's no reason. Again, okay, kayfabe reason. But kayfabe reason why you wouldn't want Kondo or Doi in your unit is, well, let's say we've got an important match on this date. Z-Brats have challenged us to a 5-on-5. We need Doi to be 5 people, but Doi's got a booking in Big Japan that day. So that's the kayfabe reason why you wouldn't want these guys in your units, because you can't rely on them. But the practical side of that, from a sense of just matchmaking standpoint and having these guys in, even if it's minor meaningful spots, I think putting Kondo with Z-Brats as an assistant member, so he tags with Z-Brats when he's on Dragongate shows, keeping Doi with Gold Class, so he's with Gold Class while he's on Dragongate shows, at least kind of keeps them in the mix and kind of keeps some sense of cohesiveness. But because otherwise it's just, okay, well, Doi's on the show, so he's going to team with Ultimo Dragon tonight, and he's on this show in Kyoto, so he's going to team with Kagetora on that show. And I think that is the spot that's the areas that I think could use a little more tightening up and a little bit of work these days.
And then with the assistants, then as we were saying, like these units who are 3 and 4, well, now you have with Doi and with Gold Class, then you have 5 people, and you can do more than a trio and a singles match on that show. You're able to do a whole lot more.
Like, what's the kayfabe reason why D Courage hasn't invited Dragon Kid?
I've been wondering that for months.
Yeah, and everybody is. Like, and the thing to do would be for Dragon Kid to get invited and say, look, you guys are, your age combined is my age, so this isn't the place for me. I'm happy to team with you. I'm happy, if they put us in a match together, Daya, you're my student. I'm always happy to team with you, but this isn't the place for me. At least you do that, and it takes the thought out of people's mind in a satisfying way. Ignoring it doesn't give it a satisfying end. And that's why I have to make up shit about Eita on commentary for a year about how he has no friends. as the kayfabe reason for why nobody's invited him to a unit, because it doesn't get brought up.
Well,
Anyway.
if Doy's gym fails, he can always go hand out medals and GLEAT. That seems like a good use of some people's time.
He does not have his own gym. He did it the right way.
Okay.
He's a personal trainer at a gym. A gym that he's been a personal trainer at for a very long time, but now he's officially like on staff as a personal trainer. He didn't open a gym on a side street in an apartment in a small town.
I remember Doy like having advertisements for his training back in like programs like a decade ago.
Yeah, he was at
Gamma's gym, right?
Gamma's gym.
Yeah,
it was personal training for women only. But he said that he's getting a lot of he's getting a lot of matches. So the personal training is ramping up, and it's something that's there, but like wrestling is still very much the main income for him, because he's getting a lot of offers. He doesn't have a visa though, so he can't go overseas because he's not with the company anymore, so he doesn't have a visa.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. That's a shame, because there are a few things I found early COVID when we were rewatching the DGUSA stuff more so than Doy going like, Doy might be a territory mastermind. This is a guy who gets U.S. territory wrestling in a way.
Yeah, I mean, Doy is really, really, really good, and it's evident how good he is. It's evident how good Eita is when they're guys that don't wrestle here and they get the biggest reactions on the show, just for the little things they do.
Yeah, Doy looks like a new human compared to what he was doing at this time last year, and obviously he was really beat up, and he took the time off and changed his schedule a little bit, and now in All Japan and DDT and Dragongate, it's like, God, I forgot how good this guy is.
Oh, well, if you're a freelancer, you've got to be good, right?
Yep.
Because
you're right.
If you're not good, then they're not going to call you back. So it's kind of one of those things. Like you get motivated because you're working with new people. He had a lot of really good things to say about like Chris Brooks and guys over in DDT. Chris Brooks especially, he had a lot of really good things to say about, and just having those new and fresh opponents, and just kind of having the freedom to go and cut, because the stuff he can go and do stuff they did in Dragongate for years that people get tired of, and he can go do it in front of a new audience, and it gets the reaction that it got 10 years ago because people are seeing it for the first time. So
that seems to be the story of him in All Japan, is do the stuff that worked in Dragongate.
Yeah, and All Japan, no offense to it, All Japan fans are still, they're that kind of stubborn old fan who still have a lot of pride in their home promotion. So it's so easy for guys from just an outside guy to go and just do basic stuff and just get booed out of the building.
That's become evident with Doy. I mean, it's not a major leaguer going down to AAA. I don't want to put All Japan down in that way. It seems very easy for Doy to do what he does there.
Yeah, he's great. It's always one of the. It's unfortunate that but man's got to eat, so don't begrudge it. He did it the right way, so he didn't run away in the middle of the night. So.
Well, Jay, we've kept you. It's getting super late over in Tokyo. Thanks so much for doing the show. Please plug all that you need to do before we get out of here.
Okay, I don't know. Dragongate Network. God, do I need to plug stuff if I'm on a Dragongate specialty show? Anyway, we've got 9 shows coming up in May. So if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. English commentary, 2 shows a month, I think, for the rest of the year. It looks like, because we've got Dead or Alive and Korakuen in May, 2 Korakuens in June, Korakuen and World in July, Korakuen and Dangerous Gate. So like basically 2 shows with English commentary for the rest of the year. And if you don't like English commentary, those shows will also have Japanese commentary, so don't worry.
Jay might be at this point the best commentator in the game, and with Ho-Ho, very strong team. Jay, you've gotten quite good. You've gotten quite good.
Thank you. I don't. I was so Stardom's doing English commentary tomorrow, and I saw like people like it's Chris and Chris and a bunch of other people, and like people are already like, oh, that sounds awful. Like, how do I watch the Japanese stream? Japanese announcers are so much better. And I just think, I feel like at the end of the day, and it's not just our stuff, but everywhere, that like more people are watching the Japanese commentary even though they don't understand it. So it's kind of
I don't know if that's the. I mean, Mike can maybe speak to this a little bit, but I feel like in our bubble of Dragongate people, they're watching you because you're so informative, and they're watching Ho-Ho because he's so out of pocket that you don't know what he's going to say. But I think it took me a long time to get used to Kevin Kelly doing New Japan, but I really like him. But if I'm watching a Cyber Agent promotion, I'm immediately going to the Japanese feed. But
okay. So why? Let me ask. Sorry, I'm keeping you guys now, but
no, please.
I'm actually really interested about this because I personally prefer no commentary. Like, I don't watch these network streams that have wrestler commentary, and I get actively mad if I can hear their commentary on the no commentary stream. Like, I send messages to the producer and I complain. And I can hear them. Move the mic away.
Sound bleeding. I'm the same way, Jay. I like the no commentary version more than the wrestler one. I like being able to hear more of the crowd.
Yeah, that, and they don't talk about the match at all during the wrestler commentary. I mean, I understand why they do it. People like it, but whatever. But I think it's very much, and with AAA too. Like, and it's not just Japanese commentary, but I think like AAA had Triple Mania, and if you go in and you read anything, you go on Reddit or you go on Twitter, you go anywhere, and people are talking about, how do I get the Mexican feed? I don't want to watch the English feed. And it's kind of the old subs versus dubs thing, whether in games, if you're playing, and look, I'm this guy, because if I'm playing a game and it has English, you're playing a game with English voiceovers or Japanese voiceovers, I'm 99 times out of 100, I'm taking the Japanese voiceovers. I can understand Japanese. And actually, lately, I prefer English because I have to live in Japanese and I'm so fucking tired of it. But, like, Japanese commentary isn't that good. Like, I don't know if this is, if I'm dropping scoops here or what on this, but like, our Japanese commentary is not that good. So, like, I don't know if it's just people just want it to be in the native language, or
Japanese commentary, if you don't speak the language, is emotive, so you might not know what's going on, but at least there's an idea that they can be excitable.
I see. I also think the thing about commentary is, I think there's I don't know, maybe 3 different approaches that you can take. You've got the WWE approach, which is to be, shouting, screaming all the time, which is if you're coming from American wrestling to Japanese wrestling, that's what you're used to. Mm-hmm. So to get a type of announcing that isn't like that is almost off-putting. Then there's also the people that want it to be, sports-like, where, you're treating it like it's an actual sport. Or the actual sport, sorry, that's disrespectful. You're treating it like it's, a fight, or so you're giving it boxing, or you're giving it MMA commentary. And I think that's what the cyber fight guys are good at, because they were MMA or MMA, judo, or whatever combat sports. So that would, I've never listened to them, so I don't know if they're good or bad or not, but I would think that would be what they excel at, because that's the background that they have. Whereas someone like Kevin Kelly came from WWE, but that was like 2 decades ago. And sorry, I'm rambling.
No, I think you're making a good point.
My personal approach to this is, I think the people that watch with the Japanese commentary, I'm not going to be able to win them. There's nothing I can do, no matter whether I get good, how good I am, how bad I am, they're going to watch the Japanese commentary anyway. I think the amount of people that actually turn away because English commentary is bad is considerably less than the people that just watch Japanese comment. Well, we're just going to watch the Japanese commentary anyway because that's what they're used to. So my job is for the people that need the English commentary, the people that actually need it to watch the show. I think those are the people that you need to focus on. You know who I hate? You know who my least favorite commentator is? Fucking Excalibur. And I hate Excalibur because he calls all the moves bullshit names. Like, if someone does a superplex, he says it's an avalanche brainbuster because that's what it says, and that's what it said in the video game, and that was the bad translation for the video game 20 years ago. Like, just call it a fucking superplex.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's so actually, I'm actually watching Kikuta versus Minoura from Korakuen because the show is on Gaora, so I'm recording it, so I've been watching the entire show. So like, they're doing moves out here. And like, so if someone does, okay, what's the move he's about to do? So like, so Minoura just did like a backdrop vertical suplex, right? So it's called a brainbuster in Japan. But if you've watched WWE or you've watched, American wrestling your entire life, a brainbuster is the drop version, right?
Yeah.
It's the Coco Beware or the Dick Slater brainbuster. So if I call a vertical suplex a brainbuster, someone who doesn't know is going to watch that and think that was a brainbuster. That was soft. There's so much unfamiliarity going on this show. If you're a first time or a new viewer, you've got so many different things to learn and understand that I need to make it as accessible as possible. So calling it a vertical suplex, people are going to say, the purist people are going to say, no, it's called a brainbuster in Japan. You should call it a brainbuster. English commentators are terrible. They don't call moves right. They should be authentic. They should do this. And they're going to turn to them. They're going to watch the Japanese commentary. And those are the people you're not going to be able to win. So, I don't know. So when you guys watch, what do you guys watch? So let's say you watch New Japan. What are you watching? English or Japanese?
New Japan, I'm watching English.
Okay.
New Japan is the one I actually flip with. Other promotions, like whenever Dragongate shows up in Cyber Agent, I choose Japanese commentary. But
Okay.
that's for but I guess I also like what you propose and what you're trying to do, Jay, and it's something that I think we kind of encounter a little bit, like the idea that Dragongate has a reputation of being this very arcane kind of thing. So you need to be onboarded. So every podcast could be someone's first. Everyone's Dragongate show could be their first. It makes sense with this. But for me, with my experience level, and I'm watching the Muto retirement show mainly to see, okay, we're gonna have some Dragongate guys on this thing. I've encountered, at least with Wrestle Universe, and this is entirely a me thing. I think Case knows exactly where I'm going with this. It bothers me a lot when things are called incorrectly or just like not showing care, I guess, in the prep, and that's what leads me to switching over to Japanese commentary if it's for something like that. But with New Japan, it's usually like if I know that I'm a sucker for Gino Gambino on commentary whenever he used to show up. So
yeah,
whenever Mr. Juicy popped up, I would listen to like their English commentary. I like guys.
But Jay, I also think. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
No, go ahead, please.
I think there's another element to this that is an unfortunate factor, depending on the way you look at it, but absolutely a factor of whether or not people are going to listen to your feed or not. And, I listen to the Dragongate English feed. I know Mike does. I think most of the people in the Voices of Wrestling Discord do. And that's because you're a pretty likable guy. And I think people get along with I think people get along with you, or at the very least, people really care about what you have to say. Mike and I like talking to you all the time, but there's a reason we have you on, because people really like these episodes. They value your opinion. I think Chris Charlton is somebody who people really value and respect his opinion. And Kevin Kelly has done, again, I was not a fan of Kevin Kelly when he first came in. Now I think he's awesome. But this will sound harsh, but people don't like the cyberfight guys because of the reputation that they have online. They continue to pick battles where it's like, why is this what you're fighting? Why are you, as a public facing figure of this thing where you need as much support as you can possibly get. Why are you doing this? It makes me not want to listen to no one English commentary, no matter how good their work is, because of situations that they've put themselves in. And I don't think you have that issue, and I don't think the New Japan guys have that issue.
Yeah, because, well, I have to. People got mad. I think I shit on some Noah guys a couple interviews last year, and people got really mad at me. But like, I didn't because like you didn't know what their names were. I'm like, but I didn't know they were on the show. I didn't know I had to know.
Yeah.
I kind of felt bad about that, but
also, if a pack of Noah Jr. show up, and I watched the promotion, if a pack of Noah Jr. show up somewhere, I'm going, all right, who's who? Can I get an 8x10 with their name next to it, please?
Well, that, and if you're invading our show, why should I be nice to them? Is another thing. But anyway, I don't know. My approach is, I should have a personality, but I shouldn't be a personality, because there's enough people have enough personalities to get to know and to understand who these people are without having to navigate me having a gimmick as well.
I think you accomplished that.
Yeah. Well, because I'm not creative enough to come up with a gimmick. That, and I also didn't have time to think about it because they threw me up there with no practice one day. I mean, but it was, like Larry, Larry Dallas. I mean, when the mic is on, he's Larry Dallas. He's not real Larry. He's a character the entire time. And for me, that was very helpful at the start, because I could, if I didn't know what to say or I didn't know where to go, I could just bait him and he would talk until, if I had a panic attack, I could just go.
Yeah. He's gonna talk as long as you're out of capacity.
Yeah, you want to go make a sandwich? You got time.
Yeah, like if I I can go have my blood pressure checked, blood drawn, wait for the results, and I can come back, and he would still be going, and that was very, very helpful for me at the start. But at the same time, I don't want that for myself, because even if this was before I was going to be play by play, this was when I was just going to be third guy, if there was a third headset, which there probably wouldn't have been. When it was going to be Lenny and those guys, at that time, the plan was just come in, be quiet, drop some sort of obscure thing to, for the diehard fans, drop just something enough to make it feel like it's worthwhile for them to watch the English commentary, and then fade into obscurity until the next time it is to come in. And unfortunately, I have to go and be out there and talk for 4 hours at a time. And it's made people at work want me to be like their hosts and stuff for all these videos that they make. Because well, you do commentary, you'd like to do this all the time. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm totally completely antisocial, and I have panic attacks, and I can't do all that. I have total anxiety, but I can do this for Dragongate because I like Dragongate. And also, it's no pressure. Nobody's watching it anyway. If I mess up, it doesn't matter. We have a profitable streaming service, but it's almost like I'm scared of us getting popular because then it would invite the toxic people.
Yeah, that's true.
The other great thing is my name. It's impossible for me to ego search. If I just go on Twitter and I put my name, put JAE in, it's just going to be all K-pop shit. So
Jay, I had the exact inverse when I was doing Everything Elite and AEW show, that I could, if I ever wanted to ego search, I was screwed, because you ever search AEW Spears, there's Sean Spears there. I had no chance in SEO, no chance whatsoever.
It's great. It's bad if you're trying to promote, but at the same time, if you're, if you
want to stay under the radar, you're fine.
If you want to stay under the radar, it's good. But I don't know.
I thought the 3-man commentary team of you and Lenny and Larry, I would have really liked to have seen what that could have become, because I thought it felt like watching Nitro, and I mean that in the best way possible, with you in the Mike Tenay role, and it felt like a a grandiose production when it first came out. But I say this when you're not here, so I'll say it when you're here. You and Ho-Ho are an excellent team, and look, I can follow what's going on from an in-ring perspective and get notes on what the promos were. I make an active choice to watch the English commentary because I think it's that good.
Thank you. I mean, I thank you. Al and 4L said the same thing, and I take that as a big compliment from people that have been watching long enough that don't need the English commentary to watch the show. Like for those people to make a conscious effort to watch the show, I'm very thankful. So if you're someone that's listening to this who, even if any shortcomings that me and Ho-Ho or me and whoever they stick me with may have, but you stick with us because you enjoy it or you get something out of it, we're very appreciative about that. And we're the only company in Japan that has parity for English and Japanese commentary. We actually have more English commentary than we have Japanese commentary in a given year. So it's good to know that our efforts are being rewarded, because I hate traveling. So it's good to know that if I have to go and stay in a shitty hotel in Osaka, that people are watching.
No, you hate traveling. They don't seem to necessarily want it, but I wish you did the full loop, and I wish you guys did every network show because I would watch it. Yeah, not happening, but I wish.
Not while I'm living, not even when I'm dead. I'm very much I want to be. If I have to travel, that's fine, but I want to be back in my bed my own bed at the end of the day. So if I can't do that, it's rough. Like I have to stay overnight. Three times a year? Osaka, Kobe, and Fukuoka. I have to stay overnight, and that's pushing it. Like Nagoya, they're like, "Are you gonna stay after Nagoya?" I'm like, "No, dude. The show's ending at 8:30. It's an hour train ride back. If the show ends at 8:30, I'm on the 8:32 train back home." Like they know. Mr. Ito, the guy who handles the payoffs, like he knows to be there with the payday as soon as the show is over, because I got my shoes and my jacket are on, the backpack is packed, and I'm ready to go. even if it's Korakuen, where I'm only 8 minutes, it's an 8-minute train ride home. That's 8 minutes I value, and I want to be out. I don't know.
Just put the envelope on the table during the wrap up.
I have to sign the receipt. That's the only reason why they can't just leave it and go, because I have to physically sign the thing. But they could put it in front of me in the middle of the show, and I would do it.
That'd be a good use of intermission on the big shows.
We don't get that's true. But
I do. No intermission. The shorter Korakuens, the shorter big shows have been very nice.
Yeah, I wish. Like I'm dreading the idea of Korakuen shows going back to ending at 9:30, 9:45. Like that would be why. Okay. From the perspective of a old fan who was in Korakuen Hall every month before the pandemic, I would not be in Korakuen Hall if I wasn't announcing. Largely because of not getting home until after 10 o'clock. Like I'm just over that. So like I was really happy when the shows were ending at 8:30 and I could be home by 9. But they're like, I'm just looking at Shun screeching at Kikuta from last month, and like how I just wanted to go home so bad. Not because I hated what was going on. I'm just like, fuck, it's 9:30. I'm gonna get home at 10. I'm not gonna eat until 10:30. I gotta be at work tomorrow, and it's the suffering of this not being my day job. Do it for the love of the game.
It is something that, especially with the double headers, like last week, and seeing like, oh, fast forward through the intermission, get through this baby in 2 hours. There's something to be said about that. And as someone who's just now moved and get in my bed every night, I definitely get the urge of, all right, if I can get home and get into my bed, I'm taking that over than some random hotel room in the middle of Fukuoka.
Yes. Hotel, like I just like I'm tall, I'm 6'4", so that means I don't fit in any bed except my bed. In
Gosh,
Japan.
I didn't even think about that consideration.
If I'm in a business hotel, I'm shins out on the bed, unless it's a love hotel, but like they're not going to pay for a love hotel for me to stay there. And it's weird. It's weird to stay in a love hotel by yourself overnight. I've done it before because the beds are big. Like if I'm paying on my own dime and the only options are a business hotel or a love hotel, I'm 100% staying in a love hotel by myself, being the weird dude that they expect that I'm waiting for a prostitute.
Being a 6'4" white guy alone in a love hotel might be a tough look.
And then where they look at me and they say, okay, when's the girl arriving? And I'm like, the girl's not arriving. I'm staying. Like I haven't paid for a prostitute. I'm paying for the huge bathtub and the huge bed because I'm tall. And that's a travel tip. If you guys are so let's start the plugs to wrap this up. So if you are coming to Japan, and you want to take it to a Dragongate show, you can send a DM to either myself or Ho-Ho. Honestly, if you send it to me, I'm going to send it to Ho-Ho, so just send it to him, because he's on the roster, so he gets the kickback from the tickets. I don't. So go through him. It'll help him out because Ho-Ho is all about the cash, and it'll help keep him here. So that and mask restrictions are gone, cheering restrictions are gone, so you have no excuse. Come to a Dragongate show. If you're in Japan, if you're a large person and hotel rooms are too small, go stay in a love hotel in Shinjuku because the beds are huge, the bathtubs are huge, the amenities are great. Sign up for the Dragongate Network. 9 shows in May. Got Dead or Alive coming up in 2 weeks. May 1st is always a great time to sign up and stay signed up for the entire summer. And hope to either see you there or see you at a show. Done.
Well, thank you again, Jay, for joining us. I know it's getting super late over in Tokyo, so we're going to end that here. You can do the same for Open the Voice Gate. You can follow us on Twitter at Open Voice Gate. Case is at _ in your case. I'm at Fujiheya. The Dragongate English Twitter account is Dragongate EN, and Jay is at DG. Is it _J or just DGJ?
I don't know. One underscore.
I think it's DG _J.
DG yep. So Jay's at DG _J, and that's going to do it. Thanks again, Jay, for coming with us this time.
No problem. It's my pleasure. Let's do it again for World.
Gladly.
Sounds like a plan. And that's going to do it for us. So until next time, take care.
Hello there, my name's Neil David, and I'm the host of Eurograps Express, the podcast exclusively dedicated to the wrestling of Europe. If it's wrestling and it happens in Europe and it's good, we talk about it. Whether it's RevPro, Progress, WXW, Passion Pro, Pro Wrestling Chaos, Pro Wrestling North, we don't care, we talk about them all. If it's good and it's exciting, I want to share it with you. We're on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Check us out on the feed, check us out on Twitter at EuroGrapsEXP, and join us for chat about European wrestling and a little bit of chat about cheese. Hopefully see you there.
Hey kids, do you like wrestling? Well, we like wrestling too. We are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Myself and Chris Novembrino kind of doing a lazy river of wrestling criticism, going through the news and whatever happened in stateside television wrestling. And also, you know what? Sometimes we just like to watch old stuff and talk about that too. Love for you to give us a listen. If you haven't already, we are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.